Hey guys, tonight we're standing by the Nile, but not in the way your 8th grade history textbook wants you to remember. It's not sunset serenity or golden dynasties we begin with. It's a man barefoot, shaved, oiled, kneeling at the riverbank with a priest chanting behind him. There's a crowd watching, not cheering, just waiting. No drums, no music, just the hush of water and the pressure of centuries. And what he's about to do is both holy and humiliating. It is, quite literally, government-sanctioned ejaculation meant to ensure the river floods, the soil breathes, and that all the nation's bread doesn't vanish under dust. It is sacred. It is lonely. It is awkward. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little time machine reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It smells like honeyed goat fat and wilted lotus. The Nile doesn't sparkle, it sweats. The current crawls, thick and brown, dragging weeds and secrets from upstream. You're kneeling on wet stone. Your thighs are shaking, not from nerves, but from holding this ridiculous ceremonial posture under the weight of every soul in Egypt. The hem of your white linen kilt is soaked with river sludge. You are Pharaoh. Or rather, you're pretending to be a god, pretending to be a man, pretending not to be cold. And in your trembling, sacred hands, you hold yourself. They've done your makeup. Your body is bathed in oils of myrrh, olive, crushed date pit. You smell like dessert and decay. Behind you, the high priest begins to chant. It's rhythmic, guttural, like someone gargling with hot ash. You don't look at the crowd. They're not supposed to make eye contact. But you know they're watching. Children, elders, guards, everyone in Memphis. The baker who kneaded your bread this morning, the old woman who used to beat your wet nurse with a sandal, maybe even a foreign ambassador blinking too often, pretending this isn't happening. Your hand moves. The priest is invoking Hapi, the Nile god of flood and fertility. He is saying, "Let the waters receive their king." You're trying to comply. You try not to think of last night's supper. You try not to think of the girl with the tambourine who was pulled from the harem this morning for this very purpose and then sent back, untouched, dismissed. You try not to think of the fact that your predecessor died mid-ceremony, literally dropped into the Nile, mid-blessing, face first, and floated off like a sandal with royal titles. This was not in the training. You exhale, you focus on the river, you imagine it as a mouth, a womb, a mirror. You imagine it wants this from you, not out of lust, but survival. You're not a man today. You're not even a king. You are a pump, a ritual syringe. The priest stops chanting. Silence. Then you finish. Into the water. The moment is both triumphant and pathetic, like winning a race no one knew was happening. There is a cheer, but it's more of a grunt, a communal sigh. The river burps. Somewhere, a crocodile flicks its tail. The scribes mark it down. The king hath blessed the flood. They write it like it's thunder. You rise. Your legs are stiff. Your knees angry. The oil itches. There is sand in places that should never know sand. You step back from the water, and the crowd parts like a sigh. No one applauds. They simply bow, slowly, reverently, and pretend they didn't just witness the most awkward magic trick in religious history. You're led back into the temple. Inside, it's dim and heavy, like someone drowned a cathedral. The walls sweat. Papyrus torches flicker, casting your shadow into strange directions. Like you're being pulled apart. There's a platter of figs waiting, untouched. You're not hungry. You're nauseous. A priestess wipes your brow with a strip of linen soaked in rose water. She doesn't look at you. She murmurs the word for life 3 times, tapping your wrist each time as if trying to restart your pulse. You hate this part the most, the pretense that this was just divine, not desperate. That the Nile's flood cycle is regular and sacred, not chaotic and cruel. That your body is not being used as a kind of ritual plumbing, pressured by priests and omens and 1,000 invisible hands on your shoulder whispering, "Don't fail like the last one did." Zoom out. In 1,000 years, archaeologists will argue whether this ever happened. Some will claim it's metaphor. Others will find an inscription on a temple wall showing a very clear depiction of a pharaoh with a comically large member aimed at a cartoon river. A few will insist it was symbolic. Most will look away. But right now, it is real. Your thighs are raw from kneeling. Your hand smells of river salt and pomegranate oil, and you're being dressed again, rewrapped in linen as though nothing happened. Later, you will sit in your chamber, watching the Nile from afar, waiting to see if your body pleased the gods, if the river will rise, if your nation will eat. You will not know. The flood will come or not. You'll either be declared divine or quietly replaced. Either way, your name will be carved in stone next to the phrase "the king who summoned the waters." But you will remember that moment not as a miracle, but as the day you became a function, a strange, exhausted machine. A lonely man on a stone bank asked to make it rain. And you'll wonder if anyone ever truly wants to be touched by the gods, especially like that. It starts with the perfume, not the kind you spray before a date. This is thicker like syrup you forgot in the sun. It clings to your nostrils, sweet and cloying, pressing into your lungs like a velvet-covered stone. Myrrh, spikenard, cardamom, and something else. Menstruation, maybe. Something feral trying to hide behind flowers. You lie still, naked beneath the linen sheet that's already damp from your own sweat. The mattress is stuffed with straw and feathers, uneven and rustling every time your sister shifts beside you. Her ankle touches yours. You both flinch. The priest outside the chamber clears his throat once, twice, a third time, like knocking on the edge of your shame. You are king of the two lands. You're 18. You're lying in a marital chamber made of alabaster and expectation, and beside you, face turned toward the ceiling, lips pursed like she's trying not to scream, is your half-sister, your wife, your key to immortality. Her name is Camera Nebti. It means she who is beloved by the two ladies. She is 14. You've known her since she was 3 and you were 6, and she pushed a date up your nose during dinner. That memory will not stop echoing as her wrist brushes yours again. The high priest begins the wedding incantation from behind the curtain. You hear the word seed repeated 5 times. The torches flicker, and the linen canopy above your heads billows faintly, as though the gods are exhaling disapproval. You're supposed to consummate before the chant ends, or the omens will be unpleasant. But your body doesn't care about omens. It cares that she's not breathing evenly, that the perfume stings your eyes, that your hands are shaking in a way no training prepared you for. Do it quickly, she says. Her voice is so flat it could be an altar stone. You blink. What I don't want it drawn out. She doesn't look at you. The priest coughs again, louder this time. You are running out of divine patience. You shift, hovering awkwardly, unsure whether to touch her shoulder or her hip or just disappear into the wall and become a glyph for failure. This is not how it was painted in the temple murals. You lower your head, you whisper, "I'm sorry." And then you move forward not like a lover, but like a boy slipping into cold water. She gasps, once, bites her lip. The sheet rustles. The air does not move. Somewhere in the corridor, someone begins to play a sistrum, that sacred rattle meant to ward off evil. The irony almost makes you laugh, but there is nothing funny about this. It is hot and mechanical and sacred and deeply, deeply wrong. Later, she curls away from you, facing the wall. You sit upright, knees pulled to your chest, picking at the perfumed linen clinging to your thighs. The priest calls through the curtain, "Have the gods accepted the union?" You do not respond. Eventually, he will assume yes. They always do. The next morning, you're back on the throne, encased in lapis and gold. The vizier reads grain taxes. You do not hear a word. Your body aches not from the act itself, but from the way you had to fracture yourself into obedience to do it. Your sister-wife is presented at court with a modest smile, dressed in white, eyes lined with kohl so thick she looks carved from obsidian. She bows. She bleeds. She's now the mother of the heir apparent, whether or not there is anything growing inside her. People cheer, offer dates, figs, incense. Your mother beams like she's watching a sacrament. She had done this too, with her own brother and his mother before him. It is divine tradition, they say. The gods themselves were brother and sister, Isis and Osiris. This is your holy bloodline, protected like sacred fire by never letting it mix with mortal veins. You try to eat a pomegranate and nearly choke on the seeds, but the blood does not stay pure. It clots, it twists, it mutates. Your cousin has 6 fingers. Your uncle is blind in one eye and believes he can speak to cats. Your grandmother had a jaw that clicked when she blinked, and when you were 10, you watched your father's body bloat from within until his stomach split open during the embalming, and the priests screamed like children. Nobody talks about that part. Back in the royal harem, the concubines whisper. Not cruelly, not yet, but they know who she is now. The first wife, the blood queen, the one who gets to sit closest to the shrine of Hathor, the one who gets to choose which girls are sent to your bed and which are sent away. You see her 3 nights later, sitting alone in the lotus courtyard, feeding raisins to a cat. You consider sitting beside her, saying something, anything. But she looks up, and her eyes are unreadable, not angry, not broken, just distant, like she's already halfway inside a tomb. Time slides forward, slow and slick like honey left in the sun. 3 months pass, then 4, no sign of pregnancy. A second ceremony is planned to reinvoke fertility, a public kiss, then a bath in cow's milk, then a night spent in the Temple of Isis, where you're meant to make love again with priestesses chanting in the next room. You dread it more than war. One evening, in the Hall of Records, you find a clay tablet tucked behind a broken statue. It's old, smudged, a genealogy of a forgotten king. You follow the lines father to daughter, to son, to sister, to father again, and then blank, a death date, no heir. Written beside it, in shaky ink, he married too close. Historians in the far future will argue whether these royal incestuous marriages were purely symbolic or physically consummated. Some will say the children of these unions showed no sign of defect. Others will analyse CT scans of Tutankhamun's clubfoot and cleft palate and say, no, it happened, and it broke them. But none of them will be able to smell what you smell. The dried blood on linen sheets, the perfume that couldn't cover the tremble in her hands, the sweat on your skin, not from desire, but from the fear of doing what is expected. That night, you wake in a cold sweat and find her standing at the edge of your chamber, veil over her face. I had a dream, she says softly. The gods were drowning. You reach for her hand, but she doesn't take it. They told me the blood is too thick, she whispers. It cannot flow, and just like that, she vanishes into the dark quiet as a curse. The next morning, the Nile turns red. The priests say it's silt, a sign of blessing. You're not so sure. It begins with silence, not peace, not rest, just the muffled, scratchy kind of silence that wraps around your ears when you've been kept inside too long, breathing the same air as 100 other girls. You wake to the rustle of linen and the soft thunk of a clay bowl being set on the floor. Bread again. No fruit today. The girl who leaves it doesn't speak. She has no tongue. You are concubine number 417. You think. You used to try to keep count, used to scratch numbers into the underside of your bedding with a broken hairpin until someone found it and took the pin away. Now you count days by the way your bones ache, the way your scent changes, the way the guards don't look you in the eye anymore. You're 15. Your name is not used here. The harem is stone, sweat, incense, and the thin blood of girls who didn't make it. They brought you here wrapped in gold-trimmed linen, told your parents you'd been chosen by the goddess Hathor herself. You would serve the living god, the Pharaoh. You believed it until they shaved your head, rubbed your scalp with crushed basil, and branded your ankle with a number written in Nubian ink. No one ever mentioned the branding, or the old woman who inspects your thighs every week with fingers that feel like cold rope, or the priestess who gives you tea that smells like iron and makes your stomach empty itself for 3 days, or the pale girl beside you who hasn't spoken in 2 moons. She just hums tuneless, over and over while staring at the ceiling, as if waiting for it to open and devour her. Each morning begins with prayer, not your prayer, the Pharaoh's. His name is intoned while you bathe in rosewater so thin it may as well be dust. You are lined up, 30 at a time, scrubbing each other's backs in silence while the eunuch watches with a face carved from boredom. You're told that if your womb is pure, the king will choose you. You're not told what happens to those he does not choose. One night, they come for girl number 72. Her name used to be Jet. You remember, because she once braided your hair and told you her village had a talking goat. She was too tall, too loud. She laughed too often. You haven't seen her since they took her to the upper court. Later that week, her sandals are redistributed. The soles are stained with something that doesn't smell like incense. They say the Pharaoh did not approve. You are careful never to laugh again. Every month, 3 girls are promoted, taken to the upper quarters to be perfumed, painted, and presented like offerings wrapped in silk and hope. The rest of you stay below, washing linens and learning to dance with veils, to sing lullabies in a language you don't understand, to smile even when your belly cramps from spoiled lentils. The dance instructor says, "Move like a lotus in heat. You must bleed charm, not blood. If he sees your fear, you will never be summoned again." You try to imagine what again feels like. Then, one day, it's your turn. They wake you at dawn, place you in a copper tub filled with milk and cold sweat, shave you again, oil every inch of you with almond and hyena fat. A priestess paints your lips with crushed beetle wings. The eunuch measures your ankles. If they are swollen, you don't go. Yours are not. They drape a linen robe over your shoulders so sheer it may as well be breath. You are led through 7 doorways, past guards who don't meet your eyes, into a chamber you've never seen before. It's not gold, not marble, just stone grey and veined with cracks, like someone once tried to weep into the walls, and on the far side of the room, behind a thin curtain of lapis beads, he waits, the living god, the man who once appeared to you only on murals and coins. He is smaller than you imagined, pale, tired. He does not speak, he does not smile, he gestures, and you obey. What happens next is not violent, but it is absent. There is no intimacy, no ceremony, just a task, performed under torchlight, to the sound of your own heartbeat thudding like a pestle in an empty mortar. When he is finished, he sighs, not with satisfaction, but with relief, like someone just completed paperwork. You are dismissed. No kiss, no name, no promise. The linen sticks to your skin as you walk back down the hall, sticky with the scent of someone else's legacy. For 3 days, you are quarantined. A priest checks your wrists, your breath, your womb. If conception occurred, you'll be moved to the blessed chamber. If not, you return to the numbered silence. You bleed on the 4th morning. No one notices. In the weeks that follow, you hear stories. One girl was taken 3 times and birthed a stillborn with 4 toes and no jaw. She disappeared the next night. Another claims the Pharaoh only chooses girls who resemble his mother. Another says he doesn't choose at all, the high priest does, based on omens in goat livers. You stop listening. You start humming tuneless, over and over. Historians will write about the harem as a luxurious place, a garden of women, a palace of beauty. They will cite poems carved on the walls, jars of scented oils, silk garments. They will describe the selection process as spiritual, sacred. They will quote royal scrolls where concubines are said to serve joyfully. They will not find your name. They will not mention the branding ink still faintly visible on your ankle, or the girl in the corner who bites her fingers until they bleed, or the way your body trembles when someone knocks on your door at night. They will say it was the price of glory. It was necessary. It was civilization. One evening, as you prepare for bed, a cat slips into your chamber. It's thin. Its ear is torn. It stares at you like it knows something. You offer it a scrap of bread. It ignores you, walks to your mirror, and stares at your reflection. You stare back. For a moment, you wonder, do the gods keep count? Do they number you? Do they remember the 417th girl? Do they even know you bled? The incense stings your nostrils before you even enter the chamber. It's a thick, clawing kind of smoke, not sweet, but sharp, like cinnamon boiled in blood. You've been fasting for a day and a half, drinking only lotus water, bathing every 6 hours in natron until your skin feels papery and foreign. Your body doesn't feel like yours anymore. That's the point. You're not meant to come here as yourself. You're meant to come as Isis. The priestess draping your veil whispers it softly. Tonight, you are divine. You're not woman. You're not girl. You're the sky-made flesh. You nod like you understand. You don't. The chamber of sacred union is colder than expected. Carved from limestone and lined with gold-plated reed motifs. It should feel majestic, but it feels womb-like and stale. like a room that's never been fully emptied of the things it remembers. In the center lies a slab, polished obsidian, shimmering in the torchlight like oil on water, no mattress, no linens. Just a cold, flat monument. It isn't a bed, it's an altar. There's a basin of pomegranate wine on one side, a bowl of red clay, a jar of honey, a carved phallus made of sycamore wood wrapped in faded blue silk. You don't ask. You're not meant to. He enters in silence. He's not the pharaoh. He's the high priest of Osiris, which makes him the stand-in for the god of death. He wears a mask, green and cracked, with narrow eye slits and lips curved upward in a permanent smile that doesn't match his breath. You try not to flinch when he touches your arm. His fingers are dry, sandpaper wrapped in rings. You're led to the slab. You lie down. The ritual is older than writing, older than pyramids. They say when Isis reassembled the body of Osiris, after he was torn into 14 pieces, she could not find one part his phallus. So she carved one from the Nile mud, made it sacred, and conceived their son Horus with the help of moonlight and morning. This is the reenactment. This is the moment where the sacred feminine resurrects the masculine divine. This is the part where you stop breathing like a person. He anoints your forehead with the honey, then your navel. He chants the old words melodic, slow. You don't understand most of them. One phrase repeats, Nebet het shedi ankh, mistress of life, birth the spark. He places the sycamore object in your hands, then takes it back. He marks your inner thighs with red clay. He kisses the space between your eyebrows through the mask. Then he enters you. It is not violent. It is not kind. It is ritual. Each movement is timed to a drum beat outside the walls. 4 priests are pounding on leather hides with carved femurs. Each beat marks a syllable in the chant. Each thrust marks an invocation. You lie still, fingers splayed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling where a falcon has been painted mid-scream. Its beak is open, its wings frozen. You don't feel holy, you feel split open. At one point, he whispers something words you recognize. A poem from your childhood. You nearly cry, not because it's beautiful, but because it's the only human thing he's said all night. When it's over, he leaves first. No goodbye, no closing prayer. The drumming stops. 2 junior priestesses enter. They wipe you down with warm milk. They rinse your mouth with wine. They help you dress in a robe made of sheer flax embroidered with tiny blue stars. You'll walk to a private chamber more ornate, more silent. You sleep on silks that itch. You dream of falcons tearing meat from bone. In the morning, you're given a medallion, a tiny gold eye of Horus. It signifies that the god has entered you, that you have become the mother of myth, at least for one night. No one tells you what to do with it. You hide it in your hair. No one says your name. Back in the harem, the others avoid your gaze, not because they're jealous, because they know, because they've done it too. A month passes, then 2. Your body shifts, breasts sore, blood delayed. You are inspected by a midwife with eyes like cracked dates. She nods. Once. You are moved to the fertile wing. The mattress is softer there. The food is better. No onions, no garlic, just grapes, honey, and fig paste. You are now a vessel. People begin to touch your belly without asking. They call you Little Isis. They smile like you're a shrine. You're no longer a girl. You're a container for divinity. But in the silence of night, you touch your abdomen and whisper to it you don't have to be a god, because part of you suspects that what's growing inside you is not holy. It is history, curling inward like a fist. Zoom out. Centuries from now, archaeologists will find fertility figurines, carved ivory amulets, temple inscriptions praising women like you. They will say ritual sex was common in ancient Egypt. These rites were symbolic, meant to ensure the land's fertility. Participants were honoured. They will not mention your back pain, the taste of clay in your mouth, the way your thighs trembled afterward, not from pleasure or power, but from the effort it took to stay still. One evening, as the sun dies red across the Nile, you hold the medallion again. You press it against your chest, feeling the faint chill of metal against your heartbeat, and you wonder if a god can enter a girl without her consent. Can she ever fully belong to herself again? It begins with the smell, not the incense, though that's there too, cloying and sweet and desperate, but something beneath it. A sourness. subtle at first, rising from between the reeds outside the queen's chambers, like milk left too long in the sun, like blood that's tried too hard to stay warm. You recognize it instantly. You always do. It's the scent of death still trying to pretend it's alive. You push through the beaded curtain, one hand pressed to your chest to steady your breathing, the other gripping the linen wraps they gave you. She was supposed to be resting. They said her time was near, but not now, not like this. But she's already gone. And the room this quiet, pink-lit sanctuary lined with lotus blossoms and jars of prayer wine knows the silence is too complete. The shadows don't flicker. The flowers have stopped exhaling. She lies in the center of the bed, half covered by a ceremonial wrap that never reached her shoulders. Her eyes are still open, her lips slightly parted, as though the final breath refused to leave her out of pride. Her belly, once so taut with promise, has collapsed. No sound, no movement, no child. You close the door behind you before anyone else can see. You slide the bolt, you blow out the nearest lamp, you kneel beside the queen, and you begin to work. Your hands move with the precision of someone who's done this before too many times, in too many rooms, with too many girls who were called vessels and left to die like broken urns. But this one was different. This one knew your name. You met her years ago, when she was just a girl barely tall enough to reach the ceremonial harp, and you were a low-born temple nurse with fingers too calloused for court. She liked to sit in your shadow while you prepared the oils, asking questions no one else dared to. Do gods have mothers? If Horus was born from magic, did it hurt? You told her the truth, even when you shouldn't have. You told her yes, it always hurts. The pregnancy had been slow, heavy, strange. The royal astrologers charted omens in her urine. The priest insisted she rest on tiger skins and drink only goat milk. But the queen had felt it something was wrong. She bled 3 times. She fainted in the bath. Her belly shifted like a sack of stones. You suggested intervention. Quietly. They ignored you. They said her body would not betray its divine duty. Now, that lie lies in front of you, cooling by the moment. You light a single lamp and begin the cleansing. You wipe the blood from her thighs with cloth soaked in frankincense and wine. You comb her hair, once thick and black, now thin and matted from sweat. You close her eyes with the pads of your thumbs and tuck a bead beneath each lid, as is custom, not the usual lapis. These are from your own bracelet, carved from old bone and softened with years of wear. Because she was not just another queen. Because her death must be hers, not the priest's, not the embalmers, not the state's. And because you know what they will do to her if they get here too soon. There's a silence that falls over the body around the 3rd hour of death. It's not the absence of breath, but the absence of possibility. Like a story that's been sealed shut. You feel it now as you finish wrapping her torso in the temporary shroud. You have perhaps 1 hour before her death becomes official, before they send for the embalmer, before her name is stripped from her body and offered up like meat. Because what they do to queens, especially young childless ones, is not preservation, it's consumption. You've seen it before. The priest-morticians who arrive smiling, the way they touch the corpse, too gently, too long, the excuse of inspection, the delay in cooling, the whispered jokes, shared over fingers dipped in sacred resin. Their masks do not hide everything. You've heard the stories, and the girl who now lies before you does not deserve to become one. You move quickly. You know a place, a small storeroom beneath the granaries, where the floor is cool and dry, where the rats don't go and the priests never think to pray. You send your apprentice barefoot, terrified to fetch your cousin. She has a cart and 2 strong arms. She owes you. Together, under the cover of moonlight, you wrap the queen in silence. You do not give her a royal funeral. You do not sing hymns. Instead, you whisper the lullaby she once hummed while you cleaned her cuts after a fall. The one about the black ibis flying east to carry away pain. You wrap her fingers in yours, and you take her away. By morning, she is gone from the palace. The official announcement comes hours later. Queen Kenneret has passed peacefully, surrounded by prayer and divine blessing. You do not speak. They say she will be buried with honors. They say the baby will be declared a divine offering returned to the realm of Ra. They say her body was untouched by pain. They say nothing that is true. The embalmer arrives too late. His tools remain clean. He grumbles, he shrugs. Another body awaits across the river. You return to your work. But now the other women look at you differently, because they know. Not the details, not the hidden place or the wrapped bead, but they know you did something brave, or maybe just something human. Weeks pass. Her name fades from the temple songs. A new queen is chosen. The court celebrates a coming fertility festival. But at night, you pass by the storeroom door and press your palm to the stone. Inside, the queen sleeps wrapped in simplicity, surrounded by silence, untouched by ritual or violence. And for a moment, you imagine her smile, not the one she wore for court, but the small one she gave you years ago, when you asked if she feared death and she said no, only what comes after. Centuries will pass. Scholars will find no record of your name. They will read papyri praising embalming rituals. They will describe Egypt as a place that honoured its dead. They will admire golden death masks and jewel-filled tombs. They will say how advanced, how beautiful, how sacred. And they will not know that once a woman with rough hands saved a queen from eternity's cruelty, not with spells, but with timing and tenderness, and the refusal to let her be touched again. You still wear the other bead, sometimes in dreams. You hear her voice. It always says the same thing. Thank you for leaving me alone. The walls of the tomb are quiet, not silent. There's always some sound in the deep but muffled, like breath behind gauze. The torchlight flickers across painted stone dancing girls with harp-shaped hips, jars of honey, pyramids floating in unnatural geometry. But what draws you in are the two men, nose to nose, painted in ochre and blue. Their fingers are laced, their eyes are soft, their hips are touching not in the way warriors clash, but in the way lovers rest. And someone, centuries ago, thought this was important enough to paint on the wall of eternity. You're a tomb attendant, barely 20, with soot under your nails and a mind too curious for your own good. Your master told you to dust the chamber, sweep the offerings, and report any cracks. He didn't tell you to stare at the painting. He didn't warn you that it might see you back. But you can't stop looking, because these men, Nyankhnum and Khnumhotep, were buried together, entombed as one, in a place usually reserved for husband and wife, and their tomb says nothing about war, nothing about conquest, nothing about crops or bloodlines. It says only united in life, united in eternity. You first heard their story as gossip. A scribe whispered it in the wine cellar, like a curse. Two men, buried as lovers, in the time of Djoser, blasphemy wrapped in stone. Others said no, it was symbolic, brotherhood, camaraderie, ritual closeness. But you'd seen enough murals to know what ritual closeness looks like. This isn't it. There's affection here, and longing, and something tender enough to be dangerous. You brush your fingers over the painted shoulder of Khnumhotep, careful not to smudge the pigment. You swear the stone is warmer there, like some echo of touch remains trapped in the rock. It makes you ache, because you know what this is, because you felt it, too. You think of the boy from the harem kitchens, the one with honey-coloured eyes and a laugh like running water, the one who slipped you dried figs in the back corridor, the one you kissed, once, in the granary loft, both of you trembling like reeds in a storm. He disappeared 2 days later. No one spoke his name again. You knew better than to ask. The priests say love is sacred, but what they mean is only the kind that produces sons, the kind with dowries and shrines and seed counted in jars, not the kind that stays quiet in the shadows, not the kind that weeps softly at funerals, pretending to be a servant, not the kind that builds a tomb and dares to paint itself in full colour. The air shifts, dust settles. You step back. You're not alone. A scribe stands at the door, squinting. You've been in here too long, he says. Come drink something. You nod, you follow, but behind your ribs, something lingers like grief in reverse, like hope you're not sure you're allowed to have. That night, you sneak back into the tomb. You light a single lamp. You sit cross-legged before the mural. You whisper to the figures. Did it hurt? Did they find you out? Did anyone try to separate you? The mural does not respond, but in the quiet, you feel something settle in the room, an absence that feels like protection. The next day, rumours reach you. They're restoring a nearby tomb. A woman's chamber collapsed from flood damage. Inside, they found a second burial platform, hidden beneath the original, and on it, bones arranged in an unusual position. Two male skeletons curled toward each other. One had a crushed pelvis. The other, fingers still curled as if reaching. Both faces turned inward. A scholar called it ritual positioning. You call it desperation. You call it what happens when love must survive beneath stone. Historians in the far future will debate endlessly. They will argue whether Nenkhnum and Khnumhotep were truly lovers, whether the touch of nose was romantic or familial, whether Tumart can ever be trusted as literal. They will say no evidence of sodomy exists. The phrase beloved of may be figurative. We must not project modern sensibilities onto ancient contexts, but they will not find the fig you once buried beneath their mural. They will not find the small clay carving of two men embracing that you made in secret and hid beneath a loose stone. They will not know how it felt to see yourself reflected, for once not in shame, but in ceremony. Years pass, you grow older, you take work cataloguing tombs, you marry out of necessity, not love. You have children who bear your nose and your silence, but on quiet nights, you visit that chamber, and you talk to the mural like a friend. You tell it things you cannot say aloud, that you still dream of the boy with the figs, that you still see his hands in yours, that sometimes you imagine your own bones lying side by side in a tomb no one dares paint. One day, a student asks you if you believe they were in love. You smile gently. You say, I believe they were remembered together, and sometimes that's all love needs to survive. Zoom out. Long after your bones are dust, the tomb remains. Tourists pass through. Guides explain the mural in 6 languages. No one agrees on what it means, but some visitors linger longer than others. Some stare, some place a single flower on the floor, and some walk away with their hands laced quietly behind their backs, fingers barely touching, afraid to be seen, but grateful that someone, once, dared to be known. The paste smells like roasted death, not metaphorically. It genuinely stinks crocodile dung, honey, acacia bark, and natron, mashed into a pulp the colour of old moss and left to ferment beneath the sun. You carry it inside a sealed alabaster jar, which does nothing to contain the stench. Your fingers still reek from grinding the mix by hand yesterday. Today, you're going to place it inside your own body, and you will do it quietly, carefully, without hesitation, like all the other girls before you. Because here in the royal harem, where your name barely matters, where your skin is expected to glow and your womb expected to behave, this is the only kind of protection the gods have ever allowed you to make for yourself. You wake before the first torch is lit. The air is already hot, but not yet cruel. Outside your chamber, sandals slap softly against polished stone. Someone hums a prayer to Hathor. Someone else gags into a copper basin, probably the new girl from Kush, the one still vomiting lotus tea from her first time chosen. You wrap your shawl tight and slip through the rear corridor, past the jasmine gardens and the back entrance to the servant's bath. You nod to a eunuch. He doesn't see you. The others are still sleeping, or pretending to. That's the only way to survive here, move like water, or rot like fruit. The hut is hidden behind a false wall in the storage hall, buried beneath sacks of old incense and unusable jars. You found it 2 years ago, after one of the dancers showed you how to press your palm against the cracked reed panel in just the right way. Inside dry floor, no guards, total privacy. And the tools of your salvation. A basin of warm water, a wool-wrapped rod, a pile of old prayer scrolls used as padding, and a painted bowl carved with a single word, shut, meaning to bind. You kneel on the mat, you exhale, you unscrew the alabaster jar, and the smell hits like hot meat soaked in copper and honey. Your stomach knots, but you do not flinch. This is the 4th time you've done this. You dip the wool rod into the mixture, then brace yourself against the wall. There is no magic, no chant, just pressure, then pain, then heat, then the burning. It starts slow, like someone warming their hands near your thighs. Then it blooms acid kissed by fire. Your eyes water, your breath hitches, your legs tremble, but you do not scream. You count. It's the only way to stay ahead of the pain. 7 heartbeats, you whisper. 8, 9. You reach 30 before the pain softens to a throb. You lie back, arms across your chest. It is done. You learned the recipe from a girl named Hessie. She was older, fierce, and always laughing too loud. She used to say a womb is like a doorway. If you don't build a threshold, everything will walk right in. She was taken last year, died during childbirth. No one says her name now. You still whisper it, especially here, in this hut. When the pain fades and your thoughts become ghosts, you stay hidden for an hour. Then you clean yourself, burn the remaining cloth, and sprinkle cedar ash across the floor to mask the smell. You smear a dab of myrrh under each armpit to convince the guards you've just come from purification. By the time you walk back into the harem, the sun is barely up. The other girls are lining up for morning inspection, palms up, eyes down, bare feet cold on marble. None of them look at you, but you feel it. They know, not all, but some. The ones who've bled for reasons they weren't allowed to explain. The ones who count their days by how long they've gone without a summons. The ones who learned long ago that a girl's first act of rebellion is to control what she carries. A scribe once told you the Nile gave birth to all things, that its waters seeded the land like a man. You wanted to spit, because you know what it feels like to be the land, to be flooded, to be expected to grow what someone else planted, and you know what it costs to stop the river. That afternoon, a younger girl named Pammy stumbles during dance practice. She holds her stomach, says nothing. You recognize the look, tight lips, wide eyes, pain without panic. You take her hand gently, whisper, "Come with me." She follows. In the hut, she doesn't speak. She lies back. You mix fresh paste half-strength and apply it for her. She whimpers, but she doesn't cry. When it's over, she says, "It smells like a rotting god." You laugh. She laughs too, even though her thighs are trembling. That night, you both share your dinner, flatbread, bean paste, a single fig. You don't speak of what happened, but when she reaches across the mat and touches your hand, you don't pull away. You remember what it means to be held gently, even just for a moment. In the weeks that follow, 2 more girls come to you, one with bruises, the other with prayers that didn't work. You show them the recipe. You help them count. You tell no one, because the priests don't protect girls like you. They protect the men who break you. Historians will call this medicine. They'll marvel at the ingenuity. They'll praise the early understanding of chemical contraceptives. They'll write journal articles and call it fascinating. They will never mention how it burned, how you had to walk slowly for 2 days, how your womb still aches when the moon is full, how you carried the memory of rot and ash between your legs for weeks at a time, just to avoid becoming a mother to someone else's choice. One day, a girl dies. She tried a new mixture, something with poppy and acacia sap. Too strong, too fast. Her name was Nebet. She was 17. She liked cats. She braided your hair once. The priests say it was illness. You know better. You light a candle. You grind her name into the wall of the hut. You keep going. Years pass. You're not summoned again. Some say you've lost your appeal. You smile when they say that, because you know what you've lost, and it wasn't your beauty. It was your permission. You took it back. You made your own god, and she lives in a jar of crocodile dung, honey, and ashes. The drumbeat begins before the sun sets, low, slow, and heavy like the sound of a heart wrapped in silk. It comes from the western quarter of the temple, where the statues of the gods sit coiled in darkness, their eyes black with dust and time. You're already kneeling when it begins, your knees pressed against cold limestone, your arms raised above your head, aching, trembling, bound in golden thread. You have not eaten in 2 days. Your mouth is dry, your skin slick with scented oil. A mixture of myrrh and blue lotus has been rubbed into every crease of your body, thick and sweet, stifling, so that even your sweat smells like something divine. Your eyes are rimmed in black, not to tempt, but to transform, not to beautify, but to conceal. You're not a girl anymore. You are Hatha's echo. You are a living incantation, dressed in translucent linen and painted offerings, and you're here to dance a god awake. They bring the statue out only once a season. He is small Osiris, king of the underworld carved from ancient sycamore, half-painted, streaked with the dark memory of incense. His eyes are closed, his phallus erect, wrapped in red cloth that's been knotted 13 times by the high priest himself. He is sleeping, they say, and he must be aroused by you. The temple dancers line up beside you, 7 women, each chosen for her beauty, her voice, her ability to move without sound. You are the youngest, the newest, the one with the high hips and hollow belly and the strange, steady stare, the one who was never supposed to be here. The high priest claps once, and the drums quicken. The fire is lit. You rise slowly. Your arms extend like reeds in wind. Your spine curves like a river. The veil around your shoulders slips down with practiced ease, revealing skin glazed in oil and ash. You're not meant to smile. You're meant to evoke hunger, not from men, from the gods, because Osiris must want to return. He must long for life again. He must feel desire curl in his stone loins and stir back from the dead, and you barefoot, glistening, swaying must give him that reason. The floor beneath your feet is slick from petals and melted wax. You move through it like mist, stepping between shadows, your hips circling in slow arcs, your hands tracing invisible spirals in the air. The priests chant behind you. They say your name is lost. They say you are every lover. They say you are the door through which the god must walk back into flesh. You twirl once, twice. Your heart stammers like a beaten drum, and still, you dance. You no longer feel the other women, only the fire, the pressure of the god's unseen gaze, and the heat between your shoulder blades, rising like something holy and forbidden. The statue watches. Its lips do not move, but the room tightens. The shadows thicken. Something shifts inside your bones. You begin to tremble. You close your eyes, and you offer yourself, not as a body, but as an instrument. Outside, crowds have gathered. They won't see you, only hear the drums, smell the smoke, feel the air shift when the ceremony reaches its peak. They'll say, the god has returned. They'll say, the crops will grow. They won't say, a girl bled into her veil that night. They won't say, she was not ready. They won't say your name. The chant rises. One of the priestesses falls to her knees, overcome by trance. Another begins to sob. You do not stop. Your eyes roll back. Your arms spiral faster. Your breath tears from your throat in rhythm with the drum. You are the axis, the spell, the hunger the god cannot resist. The priest enters the circle. He carries a chalice of date wine thickened with crushed mandrake. He places it to your lips. You drink. You do not taste. Your tongue goes numb. Your knees weaken. Your body becomes light, but still you move. Because to stop now would be to let the god die. To stop now would be to let the crops rot. To stop now would be to admit that this was never a choice, only a performance. And so you finish the dance with trembling limbs and blurred vision, and then you collapse. When you wake, you're in a cold chamber. Your body is sticky. Your lips are split. There's a faint pain in your hips, though you do not know if anything happened after you fell. You're dressed again in fresh linen, white, plain. A small ankh has been tied to your wrist. You're now called a god-touched one. They say your dance brought Osiris back. They say the Nile will flood again. They say you are blessed. You say nothing. Because your tongue is still thick with mandrake, and your legs still ache, and your soul is somewhere just outside your skin, unsure whether it wants to return. In the weeks that follow, no one asks how you feel. They leave offerings at your door, honey cakes, scented oils, copper bracelets. Girls bow as you pass. You're no longer the dancer. You are the vessel. You are the reason the god opened his eyes. But you remember every beat of that drum, every flicker of fire, every echo of your name swallowed by chant, every moment your body became not yours. You try to sleep. You dream of stone eyes watching you. You wake to the smell of sycamore and sweat. Sometimes you press your palm to your belly and whisper, "Come back to me. Please come back." Not to a child. To yourself. The next season, when the ceremony comes again, they do not ask you to dance. They say you have already served. They say the god remembers. But they do ask for your veil, the one you wore when you summoned him. They say it still holds power. They burn it in a brass bowl and carry the smoke through the city. Centuries later, archaeologists will find temple scrolls detailing the ritual dance of Osiris. They will marvel at the symbolism. They will write papers about fertility rites and divine possession. They will discuss the choreography. They will say it was theatre, it was devotion, it was ecstasy. They will not ask how many girls limped home that night. They will not ask what it means to dance for a god that doesn't blink. They will not know your name. But sometimes, beneath the oldest stones, they will find smudges of red ochre where it shouldn't be, and they'll call it pigment. But you will know better. You always did. It starts with sandals, soft ones polished, royal issue, made from papyrus and leather, the kind only the highborn wear. They squeak as they stop outside the linen screen, followed by whispers, footsteps, then silence. You sit on the cot, pretending not to shake. Your knees knock lightly together beneath your tunic. You're 11 years old, and today you are going to become a man. At least, that's what they keep saying. The chamber smells like rose water and something sharper, spice and sweat. And beneath it all, fear, not your own, or not just yours. There's someone behind the screen. You can hear her breathing, fast, not quite sobbing, not speaking either. You do not know her name. You don't even know where she's from. You know only what the eunuch told you. Lie still. Do what the priest says. Don't cry. You are royal. You are the pharaoh's nephew, which means nothing and everything. Your mother is third cousin to the king. You've never seen him up close, but because of your blood thin and watered as it may be, you've been chosen. Not for a title, not for glory, but for initiation. The priest enters first. He nods to you, then to the guards, who leave in silence. His beard is oiled, black as tar. His hands are stained red with henna. He carries a scroll, but he doesn't read it. Instead, he gestures for you to stand. You do. You're not wearing undergarments. The room feels colder now. The girl is still behind the screen. He unwraps a small bundle, poppy resin. He smears it on your wrists, under your nose. You mustn't embarrass yourself, he says flatly. This is sacred. You nod, but you do not feel sacred. You feel like a boy about to touch fire. He calls for her. She enters. She is your age, maybe younger. Her eyes are red, her hands clenched. She wears a linen shift stained at the hem, and nothing else. She does not look at you. You do not know if you're supposed to speak, to bow, to greet. But the priest simply says, lie together. Show the gods your seed is strong, and so you obey. There's no kindness, no rhythm, just movement. Awkward, jerky, silent. You're not sure you even managed to enter her fully. She does not guide. She does not resist. She lies still as a funerary mask. Her eyes are fixed on the ceiling. You try not to sob, because this is not like what the older boys bragged about. This is not skin and heat and power. This is confusion, slick and shameful, crawling down your thighs. You finish in seconds. You're not sure what that means. The priest marks something on the scroll. He nods. You may go. You're led out. You do not see her again. That night, you sit in your cot and try to clean yourself with a damp cloth. The scent won't leave. It clings. Not her scent, yours. The sweat, the poppy, the fear. You rub until your thighs are raw. Still, it lingers. The next day, you are celebrated, not publicly, but among the eunuchs, the priests. They say you did well. They say the gods smiled. They say you're now eligible for real union, for harem assignment, for breeding. You want to vomit. You hear later that she bled. They say that's a good sign. They say she's pure. They say her body is ready. You want to scream. Historians in the far future will debate whether boys in ancient Egypt were sexually initiated at puberty. Some will insist it was ritualized. Others will say it's propaganda, exaggerated by foreign scribes. They will point to records of fertility ceremonies, of noble sons paired with slave girls to prove their manhood. They will say, the culture was different. The context matters. These were not children as we understand them. They will not mention the girl's red eyes, or your shaking hands, or the cloth you couldn't get clean. A month later, they assign you a concubine. You are 12 now. She is 16. You're told to sleep with her twice a week. You stop eating. You stop speaking. You break open a jar of ointment and smear it on your arms until they blister just to be excused from duty for a few days. The priest calls it a tantrum. The guards laugh. You begin visiting the old librarian in the temple archives. She's blind in one eye, but she lets you read the myths aloud. You start with Horus, with Ra, with the sacred cows and the eternal cycles. Then you find a story they don't teach in court, of a boy who loved another boy, Not in battle, not in duty, in secret, in silence. They drowned in the Nile together. You read it 5 times, and cry each time. One night you slip out of your chamber, you find a corner of the harem wall and scratch a line into the plaster. Then another, each line for a name you don't know, each line for a girl or boy or child who never got to say no. The priests begin to worry. They say you've become sullen. They say your seed must be stirred again. You're sent to a healer who gives you herbs. You lie. You say they help. They stop asking. You never see the girl again. You ask once, quietly. A cook shrugs. She was taken to the temple of Bastet. He says, good family, pretty hips, might bear twins. You don't believe him, but you want to. Years later, you will be 20. They will try to match you with a wife. You will agree, because you've learned that saying yes is easier than remembering what happens when you say nothing. Historians will find scrolls celebrating rites of passage. They will find statues of young princes beside lions and thrones. They will say Egypt revered youth, celebrated virility, honoured its sons. They will not find your name, or hers, or the small scrap of linen you hid beneath your pillow, stained and frayed, because it was the only proof you ever touched another person who didn't want to disappear. You once heard a priest say, a man's power lies in his ability to plant life. You think he meant fear. It begins with a lock of hair, curled, dark, still clinging to the faint scent of cedar and sweat. You hold it in your palm, reverently, as if it might turn warm again. It doesn't. It's just a strand, a fragment, a piece of someone who once whispered your name in the dark. Not because it was safe, but because it was real. You tuck it into the folded linen square that holds your ingredients: dried rose petals, crushed dates, honey hardened into amber, ash scraped from the base of a temple lamp, and beneath it all, a torn scrap of papyrus on which you've written his name 12 times in red ink. You will burn all of it tonight. You will mix the ashes with goat milk and drink it. You will say the prayer. You will bind him, because you are in love, and you have been left behind. You were warned. Everyone says magic is dangerous when you're desperate, but no one tells you how desperate desire makes you until you're curled up on your sleeping mat, unable to breathe because the person who once looked at you like you were more than shadow has vanished. He didn't say goodbye, just reassignment, a cart, new linens, and a passing joke from a eunuch. You'll forget him. Everyone does. You won't. You can't. So you do what girls have done for centuries. You go to the old woman behind the incense stall and whisper the truth. You pay in silence and broken fingernails, and she gives you the spell. Binding spells are common. The Egyptians believe love is a force, a god, a weapon, a wound. If wielded right, it can resurrect. If mishandled, it devours. The oldest papyri are full of them, spells written in blood, in soot, in semen. Prayers to Isis, to Hathor, to the dark, faceless god who watches over doorways and keeps people from leaving. Let him dream of you and wake sweating. Let his loins ache until he returns. Let him see only your face, even when he sleeps beside another. Some use hair, some use spit, some require bones. You choose the one that uses your own blood, because if it's going to cost you something, let it be something real. You wait until the 3rd night, when the moon is smallest. You light one lamp. You cut your palm with the edge of your gold ring's ring, the one he left by mistake. You squeeze until the drop falls into the bowl. You whisper his name, not loudly, not in longing, in claiming. The mixture burns when you drink it. Your throat closes, your chest constricts, your fingers go numb. You fall back on the mat, breathing hard, the walls spinning. Your body hums not with pleasure, not with fear, but with power. Ancient, tangled, aching power, and deep inside your bones, something answers. The dreams start immediately. You see him in a field of papyrus calling for you. You chase him, barefoot, lungs aching. He turns. His face is smudged, melting. His hands are bound in linen. You scream. You wake with blood on your sheets, not your monthly blood. This comes from your nose, while your mouth, the cut in your palm, reopened without touch. The spell is working. Historians will call these spells superstition. They will catalogue the ingredients like recipes: milk and natron, semen in sea salt, a dove's feather dipped in menstrual blood. They will marvel at the desperation. They will laugh, sometimes, reading. To make him lose his appetite for all others, bury a snake's tongue beneath his bed. But they will not write about the ache behind these spells. The girls sitting in corners, whispering names into jars. The boys stealing sandals just to hold something their lover touched. The people who were never allowed to say mine out loud, so they wrote it in secret, in flame, in salt, in suffering. You continue the ritual for 7 nights. On the 4th, he appears in your dream again. He is crying. He says your name, over and over. You wake shaking, you vomit, you bleed again. Your left eye twitches for hours, but you smile. Because if you're in pain, so is he. By the 6th night, he sends a letter. Not a love letter, just 4 words. Are you doing this? No signature, no wax seal, just charcoal on papyrus, smudged by someone's thumb. You don't answer, but you press the letter to your lips and burn it. The 7th night is the hardest. You fast all day, you kneel for hours, you smear your belly with clay and rose oil, as instructed. You carve his name into a date pit and swallow it whole. You wait. Nothing happens. No dream, no sign, just silence. You sleep poorly. When you wake, something is gone. Not from your room, from your chest. The longing, the rage, it's vanished. Not healed, just bound. The spell didn't bring him back. It buried him inside you. You weep, not because you failed, but because you succeeded, because now you belong to the longing, not him. In later years, you'll hear of girls who died from stronger spells. One drank too much blood. Her own heart stopped. One tried to tie 3 men to her at once, went mad. One mixed semen and crocodile teeth, her stomach tore open from the inside. The old woman behind the incense stall vanished one day. Some say the gods took her. Others say she tied herself to someone who never loved her back. You don't cast spells again, but sometimes you catch your reflection in water and see his face behind yours, still bound, still breathing. Centuries from now, they'll find a box under a ruined temple, inside a strip of linen with 2 names written in iron ink, a ring, a knot, a date pit. They will say it was ritual. They will say it was myth. They will not say it was love. They will not say it hurt, but you'll know. It starts with the scent of jasmine, not the fresh kind, the jasmine they burn in censers beside the offering altars. Smoky, oily, sweet in a way that turns your stomach when you've breathed it for too long. It clings to your veil, your wrists, the fold of your thighs. You cannot wash it off. You're not a courtesan. You're a priestess of Hathor, which means your pleasure does not belong to you. It belongs to the temple. You were chosen at 13. One morning you were kneeling with the other acolytes, scrubbing red clay from the temple steps. The next, a priest with rings on every finger pointed to you and said, "That one." She smiles too easily. You smiled again, nervously. That was mistake number 1. They trained you for a year. Not in scripture, not in healing, but in performance. You were taught how to walk not too fast, not too proud, how to speak not too high, not too soft, how to laugh like honey being poured into a golden bowl, how to touch someone's wrist and make them feel like they were being blessed, how to lie with your eyes, how to move without seeming to. They said you would become a sacred bride. They said your body would become a vessel for divine joy. They said pleasure was not a sin, but an offering. You tried to believe them. Then the first patron arrived. He wasn't old. That almost made it worse. He was nervous, sweating through linen robes, barefoot, as custom demanded. You were told to receive him in silence, to anoint his hands with rose oil, to sing to him, then to let him lie down. He asked if you were afraid. You said no. That was mistake number 2. The act itself was short, clumsy. He spilled wine on your chest. He apologized. You said nothing. You looked at the ceiling the whole time. The mural of Hathor, laughing, arms outstretched, surrounded by flowers and dancing girls. You tried to imagine being inside the painting, but the stone beneath your spine would not let you forget where you were. When it was over, he kissed your forehead. He left a fig by your bed. The priestess supervising from behind the curtain said, "Well done. He will return." You nodded. That was mistake number 3. You became popular. The priest said it was a blessing, that your touch awakened the divine in others, that you were beloved of the goddess, that your womb sang like a harp. You smiled. Again. Always the smile. They called you a sacred one, a lotus of the temple, a walking hymn. You preferred silence. Each patron left something behind. Some whispered your name like a secret. Some asked for hair. One left a necklace you weren't allowed to wear. One carved a bird into your thigh with his fingernail and said it would help you fly. You bled that night. No one came to clean you. Historians will debate the role of sacred prostitution in ancient Egypt. Some will deny it existed. They will say temple priestesses were dancers, musicians, oracles. They will say sexuality was symbolic. They will point to the absence of direct records and say, this is just Greek rumour. There's no hard evidence. They will ignore the mural in your chamber, one of a woman kneeling between a man's thighs, her eyes cast downward, painted in blue and ochre. They will not ask why the woman's face has been scratched out. You stopped smiling after the 6th moon. Not on the outside. Outwardly, you were flawless. But you stopped smiling inside, where it counts. You began counting things, breaths during the act, beads on the offering bowl, the number of steps from your room to the bathing pool, the number of times your body stopped shaking when you thought of walking into the Nile and not returning. You kept those numbers like prayers. One morning you heard a girl scream in the next chamber, then nothing, then the scent of lavender. She never returned. You were given her veil. It smelled of her still. You held it to your face and whispered her name, then bit your tongue until you tasted blood. Not all patrons are cruel. Some are lonely. Some ask to hold your hand and cry. Some give you gifts they're not supposed to. One wrote you a poem. You burned it, not because it was bad, but because it was too kind. And you couldn't bear kindness in a place where your body wasn't yours. You began hiding things, tiny things, a dried fig pit, a drop of wax, a broken anklet bead, a shell from a priest's robe. You buried them behind the brazier in your chamber, your real offerings. The only things that felt yours. The priest noticed you becoming quiet. They said you were evolving, becoming a vessel, emptied of self. They said you would soon be ready to be chosen by the high patron, the man who sponsors the temple, the one who comes once a year, the one no girl ever talks about afterward. You prepared for 3 nights, fasted, purified, wore a veil soaked in a rose and goat's milk. You were led to the sacred chamber. The floor was cold, the bed was copper. The high patron arrived with no mask. He was your uncle. You did not cry. That was your final mistake, because if you had cried, they might have called it weakness, but your silence meant consent, and so the goddess was pleased. Afterward, you bit your own shoulder until it bruised, to feel something that wasn't him. The next morning, they braided your hair and gave you a gold necklace. You flushed it down the bath drain. Later, you vomited blood. No one came. You still walk the temple. You still dance. You still sing. But when the jasmine smoke fills your lungs, you breathe through your mouth, so it won't cling, so it won't feel like it's part of you. Centuries from now, tourists will walk through the ruins of your temple. They'll marvel at the carvings of Hathor. They'll take selfies beside faded murals. They'll buy incense sticks at the gift shop. They won't know the stones still whisper your name at dusk. Not the name the priest gave you, the one you buried under the brazier, the only one that was yours. The Nile shouldn't smell like copper, not this far upstream. Not in the low sun quiet of twilight, when the river usually laps like a sleeping beast at the feet of the fields, soft and full of secrets. But tonight, it reeks sharp and red, like an open mouth full of old blood. You kneel at the water's edge with your jar, barefoot, linen skirt hitched high. You are sent to collect water for the evening purification, but you don't dare dip the jar, because the water is different. It swirls too thick, moves too slowly, and when you hold your hand just above it, the air shivers, like the river is breathing, but not cleanly, like it's remembering. Earlier that day, a girl had bled too much. Her name was Renifer. She was 15. She was quiet. She wasn't the first. The priestess said it was the gods claiming what was owed. The guard said nothing. You had helped clean the floor afterward. Pale blood like wine mixed with ashes. A pool that refused to dry. You used 2 linen cloths and a broken reed brush. When you threw the water out behind the temple wall, it hissed as it hit the earth, like it was too hot, like it didn't want to be forgotten. You bend over the Nile now and stare. The water is definitely red. Not the pinkish hue of silt after flood season. Not the rust of dead reeds. This is deep. This is wrong. It smells like meat left in the sun. And somewhere beneath the reeds, something is floating. A cloth. No avail. Torn. You drop your jar. Later, they say the river turned red because of algae. They say the heat was unnatural that year. That frogs died. That fish floated belly up for days. The priests claim it was punishment. That the people hadn't prayed enough. That the fields had been left unblessed. That too many women had spoken aloud in the temples. The blame slips easily down their tongues. But you remember, the night before the Nile changed, a boy from the pottery quarter tried to break into the harem compound. They caught him, beat him, dragged him to the Nile, said he had defiled the sacred grounds, said his blood would be purified in the water. You heard the splash, you heard the screaming, you saw the ripple, and now the river will not stop singing in your ears. The next morning, the fish are gone. The air is too quiet. Birds fly inland, away from the water. The temple girls are ordered not to bathe. You're told the Nile will forgive you soon. You're not told what to do in the meantime, when you can still smell renifer on your fingers. When the dead boy's name echoes inside your skull like a hollow drum. When the Nile won't let go of your eyes. You begin seeing things. Not visions, not omens. Just faces half submerged, blurred by current, staring back. Sometimes it's renifer. Sometimes it's your sister. Dead 2 years now. Sometimes it's a stranger who looks too much like you to be coincidence. You stop drawing water, you stop sleeping, or you stop speaking, but the river does not stop. Historians will study the Red Nile event. They will blame bacteria. They will cite records of the plagues. They will say it's a metaphor. It was divine wrath. It was climate. They will not know what it feels like to kneel in blood and still be expected to sing, to pretend you are pure, to smile while the river pulls names from your throat. A week later, they order a purification ceremony. The priestesses are lined up in gold and lapis, barefoot, swaying, singing hymns. The high priest walks into the river up to his waist. He cuts his own palm and lets his blood drip. 1 drop for every lie, he says. The water doesn't change. It only stares back. That night, a crocodile washes up on the shore, dead, split open. Its stomach is filled with bracelets. You recognize one. It belonged to a girl who disappeared 3 months ago. The priests burn the body. They do not explain the bracelets. They say crocodiles are chaotic, unclean. They say nothing about what it might have swallowed. They say even beast can be punished. You gather pebbles from the riverbed and paint them with names. Not with ink, with your own spit and ash. You place them beneath your mat. 1 for every girl who went missing. 1 for the boy with the broken nose. 1 for renifer. 1 for yourself. Because part of you has already gone into the river, and you don't know how to get it back. You stop attending the morning prayers. You walk alone to the river's edge at dusk. The water has faded to brown, but the smell lingers. You whisper into the wind, "Did we offend you?" The river doesn't answer, but it doesn't spit you out, either. That's something. Centuries later, scientists will drill sediment cores from the Nile. They will find layers of red clay, stained with iron and strange microbial residue. They will marvel at the anomaly. They will publish articles. They will not know your face. They will not know how you screamed underwater just to hear silence again. They will not know how the river held you not gently, not cruelly, just tightly enough that you thought for a moment you might be forgiven. Sometimes, in your sleep, you dream of walking across the water barefoot, not sinking, not drowning, just walking. And all around you, the river is red, and all around you, no one is watching. Only the names in your mouth, spoken. Finally, you are trained not to jump to conclusions. Every brushstroke on an artifact must be questioned. Every scar on a skeleton examined from 3 angles. Every inscription translated twice, once literally, once with superstition in mind. You follow all the rules, and yet here you are, staring at a female pelvis, nestled in the heart of a nobleman's tomb, and you know instantly, instinctively, that none of those rules will explain this. She's not supposed to be here. The tomb had been catalogued as male only, an official, a cousin to Pharaoh Teti, buried with honors, sealed with ceremony, no known wife, no documented offspring, a solitary man. But when your team opened the sarcophagus, 2 bodies lay inside, one unmistakably male, the other clearly not. You're the junior osteologist on-site, low rank, low pay, lower voice. Your job was to measure and record, sweep dust, document joints, stay quiet unless consulted. But the shape of her hip steals your breath, the jaw, too delicate, the hands long-fingered, calloused in strange places. You whisper, without meaning to. She was strong, and in that moment, something in the tomb seems to shift. The torchlight flickers against the wall. You glance up. There, above the slab, is a faint painting you hadn't noticed before. A woman, eyes cast down, kneeling beside a man, their hands touch not clasped, but linked by a single red thread. It's barely visible beneath centuries of grime. It's not listed in the tomb plan, but it's there. You start documenting. She was buried like royalty. Not in her own coffin, no. The sarcophagus is built for one, but she's folded in beside him, wrapped in linen of high quality, her jewellery intact. That alone is astonishing. Looters rarely leave anything behind, and yet she wears 5 rings, one bearing the glyph for Merit Beloved. It's not hers. The masculine form of the word is used, but it's worn on her, over her bones, like armour. You check the inscription. The outer tomb reads, "He who walks with Maat, guide of the vizier's road, light of the second nome, beloved of the Ka." Every title masculine, every pronoun he, but inside, behind the funeral altar, another carving is half hidden. You trace it with your fingers, breath held. It's eroded, yes, deliberately. You think, but the grammar, it shifts. Suddenly, a line reads, "She who endured, she who stayed." Your skin prickles. There are legends about this. Quiet ones. Stories told by temple scribes and old nannies of women who followed their husbands into death not by sacrifice, but by forgery, who disguised their remains, paid off morticians, smuggled themselves into tombs they weren't meant to occupy, because they couldn't bear to be left behind, because love does not honor protocol, because grief makes ghosts bold. You sit beside the slab. It's cold. Dust sticks to your palms. Your knees ache. But you stay, because this woman chose to break every rule of the afterlife just to lie beside him, and someone tried to erase her for it. The field supervisor comes by. "Looted tomb," he mutters. "Body dump." They did that sometimes. When burials overlapped. Mark it. Move on. You almost open your mouth. You almost say, "No, she was supposed to be here," but you don't. Because you know what happens when women like her are noticed too loudly. They get relocated, labelled anomalies, locked in museum basements under inconclusive, and she's spent too many centuries fighting for this inch of eternity. You take photos, you write down everything, and you do not submit it all. You keep one copy private. Hidden, you keep her safe. That night, you dream of her. You're in the tomb again, but the torchlight is gone. The air is warm. She's there, seated beside him, veiled in stars. Her face is not young, not old, just alive. She looks at you, not with sorrow, with warning. Do not let them rewrite me. You wake in a sweat. You believe her. A week later, you're alone in the chamber again. You bring a single offering, a lotus carved from soapstone. Your own, carried from home. You place it between them on the slab, just beneath their hands. The field report lists it as ritual placement. You do not correct it. Historians will have a field day. They'll argue over gender identity in mortuary practice. They'll wonder, was she a priestess in disguise, a cross-dresser, a servant? They'll ask, was this body meant to be symbolic? Was it a political marriage? They will run DNA. They will conclude nothing, and yet they will write books, never realizing the most important truth is something they cannot measure. She wanted to be here, and she was willing to disappear to make it so. There's something sacred about that. Not devotion, defiance. Later, you learn the man was buried with a ring set not commonly used in nobles' tombs. You examine it more closely. 2 small serpents, coiled together, biting their own tails, an Ouroboros, the symbol of eternity. But in this design, there are 2, mirrored, equal, You hold it up to the light, and you weep. Not for her, she has what she came for. You weep for the rest of us still clawing at walls for even half that kind of ending. At the end of the dig, the team proposes relocating the female remains for individual analysis. You object. You say there's no scientific reason to separate them. You say it's better to preserve the context. You do not say she waited 4,000 years. Don't tear her from him now, but you say it inside, over and over, and this time, they listen. She stays. Centuries ago, someone tried to carve her out of history, and you carve her back in. Quietly. Completely. One detail at a time. You're summoned when the moon is only half formed. That's never good. Mid-phase moons are for transitions between king and corpse. Breath and silence, obedience and truth. It's the kind of night where perfume doesn't cover rot, and linen never stays white. The eunuch knocks once, softly. You don't ask which pharaoh. You already know. He's been rotting inside for weeks now. You could smell it in the way his robe soaked through by mid-morning. In the way his voice sounded more like phlegm than command. In the way the harem girls whispered with their eyes wide, like sparrows trying to sing through a storm. Now he wants softness. Now he wants you. You're not special. Or rather, you were trained to be special. And in that paradox lies your real curse. You're the one with the olive skin and the lashes like black thread. The one who dances with arms loose like wine pouring. The one who knows the difference between a moan of pleasure and a moan for distraction. You were chosen because you learned to smile on command. You walk barefoot to the great hall. The corridor smells like crushed lilies and damp feathers. Every step is muffled in hush. It's late enough for ghosts to eavesdrop, but too early for priests to start arguing over metaphors. You don't speak. No one does. The hall has changed. Gone are the thrones and tax ledgers. Gone is the room where nobles argued over wheat shares and slave lists. Now it is a stage, and on the stage, they've built a world where nothing matters but skin. Silk drapes loop like vines from the pillars. Wine jugs the size of toddlers sit sweating on marble trays. Incense burns like 1,000 slow exhalations. The kind that say, don't think, just feel. The ceiling is painted with stars, actual stars, constellations copied from priest scrolls and marked in gold leaf. And in the centre, the couch. More a dais, really, piled with cushions, ringed with bowls of fruit and oil, and open scrolls filled with poetry about hips and flesh and divine excretions. And atop it, the God King, Pharaoh, half dead, whole smiling. His lips are cracked, his fingernails black at the edges. You can see where his ribs have begun to betray him, poking sharp against the silk tunic like stones under thin linen. But his eyes are still alert, greedy. He sees you, and he reaches, not with strength, with expectation. You bow. You do not flinch. You sit at the edge of the couch and place the lute in your lap. You begin to play. They told you once that the pharaoh's virility controlled the Nile, that every thrust of his hips echoed downriver into the crops, that his orgasm guaranteed the rains, that if he died unsatisfied, the soil would sour and fish would not spawn. They told you this while painting your eyes with crushed beetle shells, while teaching you how to hold a man's gaze without blinking, while showing you how to oil another body without trembling. They didn't ask what it meant to give your body to a god who forgot how to touch gently. They just taught you how to survive being sacred. Girls enter, 12, then 16, then more. You lose count. Some wear veils, some wear nothing at all wear the scent of rosewater and something darker resin or musk or fear. Each is guided by a priest. Each carries a bowl figs, dates, wine, oil, honey, aphrodisiac paste made from fermented garlic and crushed blue lotus. Each bowl's low, each waits for permission. The pharaoh gives it with a twitch of his hand. The music continues. You shift your chords, letting the notes rise and fall like breath between thighs. You watch the scene unfold. One girl massages the pharaoh's feet with honey, another kisses his spine, a third kneels between his knees, though you can't see what she does. The priests chant in the background, a low melodic mumble about life and fertility and the illusion of control. You keep playing, your fingers ache, but you do not stop. They say a pharaoh must not die without releasing his essence back into the cosmos. They say a dry death means famine, a wet one means plenty. You wonder who first made that rule? You wonder how many girls drowned to make it come true. You catch the eye of one dancer. She's older, maybe 20. Too old for this. She's oiled from head to toe, her curls pinned with tiny scarabs, her lips painted gold. She does not smile. You know what that means. She's been here before. The pharaoh drinks, and drinks, and drinks, until wine trails from his mouth like saliva. He tries to sing. Fails. He laughs instead. A gurgle. He calls for a boy. They bring him one. Slim, bare-chested, 13 at most. The pharaoh places a hand on the boy's thigh. The boy does not move. The music doesn't stop. This is not an orgy. Not in the way foreign merchants whisper it. Not pleasure. Not wildness. This is ritual theatre. A last act for a king whose flesh has already begun to forget itself. There are moments of horror. A girl vomits behind a pillar. A dancer slips on oil and cracks her ankle. One priest drops a bowl and cuts his palm on obsidian. The pharaoh does not notice. He's too busy trying to stay erect. They apply oils. They chant louder. One priest kneels and begins a litany to Min, god of virility. Rise, O staff of eternity. Let the field be seeded. Let the temple flood. The pharaoh groans. He lifts his hips. There is cheering. One girl begins to cry. You change keys. You've been playing for hours. You have no idea what song you're on. Your fingertips are bleeding and you don't care, because now, finally, he stops. His eyes go wide, not in pleasure, in terror. He tries to speak. Foam flecks his lips. His fingers clench the boy's shoulder too tightly. The boy flinches. The pharaoh shudders once, then goes still. No one moves for 3 full heartbeats. Then the priests spring into motion. Continue. One whispers. He is still warm. The rite is not complete. The girls obey, because to stop now is blasphemy, because even in death, the king's body must be celebrated, because the difference between corpse and god is only how well you perform the illusion. They lift him, wipe him, pose him, apply more oil. A dancer straddles him. She does not flinch. Another pours wine between his lips. It dribbles down his chin. The boy backs away slowly, like prey from a carcass. No one sees him leave. You stop playing. No one notices. You slide the lute to your side and stare at your hands. They're trembling. You hide them beneath your shawl. The chants grow louder. The oil pools on the couch. Someone knocks over a brazier. The room fills with smoke. Still, the pharaoh remains center stage, his jaw slack, his eyes open, his body refusing to leave. At dawn, they finally let you go. The ceremony is declared a success. The rites completed. The Nile will rise. The crops will bloom. The gods are fed. You limp back to your chamber and scrub your skin until it blisters. You burn your robe. You bury your lute. They say the pharaoh's tomb was filled with women, mummified lovers, sacred oils, scrolls detailing every inch of his final night. They call it the death of golden joy. They carve it in stone. Historians will call it a ritual feast of flesh. They will compare it to Dionysian cults. They will write the god's seed ensured cosmological fertility. They will not write the girls bled. The boy trembled. The musician played through tears. But you will know, because the sound of that lute still haunts your hands, and the image of a god dying mid-thrust is etched into the back of your eyelids. You never perform again, but sometimes alone. You hum one note, just one, and wait to see if anything stirs. It never does. You're dead, but not the way they think. You died long before the embalmers arrived, before the copper hook was slid up your nose to pull out memory in soft grey coils, before your lungs were dried like figs and your body packed with spices too sacred for the living. You died when they told you what you would be buried with. A mirror, a wig, a miniature loom, 3 Shabti workers, no knife, no sandals, no name on the outer wall. That was the moment you realized they had planned your eternity without you. So you began to make other plans. In life, you were a palace scribe's daughter, high-born, proper, quiet, the kind of girl who recited hymns and poured water during the moon rituals, the kind of girl who asked too many questions about death, and who kissed her nursemaid on the mouth behind the grain store. You were supposed to marry. Instead, you got a cough and a room. and whispers, then incense, then linen, then silence. But the silence did not belong to you, and neither would your tomb. They say the afterlife is a mirror of this one, that every field ploughed here will bloom again there, that every cup drunk here will refill itself forever, that every man you served here will be waiting for you, arms outstretched, sandals polished, eager to repeat the same affections until the sun dies. You find this idea intolerable. You decide, instead, to fill your tomb with secrets. On the third day of preparation, you ask the mortician's apprentice for ink. You say it's for a prayer scroll. He nods. He brings you a quill too. You write nothing on the papyrus he gives you. Instead, you write on yourself, under your tongue, inside your thigh, between your last two ribs. Just a word, repeated in 3 scripts mine. Your sister tries to visit. They deny her. You ask why. The priest says she is unmarried, unclean. You do not argue. You ask instead that she be permitted to send a scarf, just one, for comfort. The priest rolls his eyes, but later, the scarf arrives, woven in red and ochre thread, soft, smelling of her. You sleep with it tucked beneath your ribs, even as they begin to stiffen. The embalmer arrives on the 4th day. He is young, kind-faced. He bows to your mother before entering. He bows to you before beginning. That, at least, is different. You watch him prepare his tools, copper knives, ceramic hooks, white linen strips, 4 canopic jars already labelled liver, lungs, stomach, intestines. Your heart will be wrapped and placed in a special chest. Your brain will be discarded. You smile at the irony. He begins with your mouth, not to sew it shut, to open it. He whispers the words, let her speak again. Let her eat in the fields of reeds. Let her laugh in the orchard of memory. He does not know you are listening, but you are, and you file the words away, to use when it matters. The night before your burial, your maid sneaks in. She brings something small in her palm, a beetle, carved of lapis, smooth and perfect. She places it on your tongue, a heart scarab. You've heard of them, usually for warriors, kings, men, not for girls with coughs and questions, not for girls who kissed nursemaids. But she places it there and whispers, may your heart not betray you. You try to cry. You cannot. So you remember instead. On the day of your funeral, the procession is long. Hired mourners wail. Priests drone. Your mother does not cry. She only clutches your father's arm until her knuckles go white. Your father does not look at the coffin. He looks past it. Like the future will arrive faster if he pretends it isn't being buried. The tomb is small. For a noblewoman, it's fine, but you notice things. There are no offerings of honey, no sandals, even symbolic ones. Only one water jar. You're meant to be thirsty forever. You're meant to crawl. You're meant to accept this. You do not. Before they seal the chamber, your maid lingers. She arranges your scarf, adjusts your wig, presses a folded linen square beneath your left hand. You recognize the smell lotus resin and her skin. You do not move, but you feel something settle in your chest. Something like readiness. They close the tomb. The stone grinds into place like a jaw locking shut. Then, finally, silence. But not loneliness, because now you begin. The afterlife does not arrive all at once. It comes in fragments. First, you hear your own breath again, then smell, then pain light, like distant thunder in your bones, then memory, trickling in like cool water, and then a door. Not a real one. A space inside your chest. Something you built, word by word, stroke by stroke, with the ink and the beetle and the scarf and the silence. You step through it. The field of reeds is supposed to be paradise, and it is, but not theirs. Yours. Your reeds grow crooked. Your sky is mauve. Your sandals are made of shadows, and in this place, no man calls your name unless you allow it. No voice enters unless invited, and no body touches yours unless you move first. You wander through memory. You find your sister, laughing. You find your maid, humming. You find your own breath, curled like a sleeping cat at the base of your spine. And you pick it up. You wear it again. In your tomb, centuries pass. Sand floods the door. Earthquakes shift the walls. Tomb robbers find the jars but not the heart scarab. The ink beneath your ribs remains untouched. When they finally open your coffin, they find your body twisted slightly to the left. They call it embalming error. They don't know you turned away from them. One day, a girl archaeologist touches your scarf. It crumbles, but the scent clings, and she dreams of red thread and crooked reeds. She writes about you, but not in journals, in poems. You approve. They say you were buried alone, but they're wrong. You took everything that mattered. Your word, your breath, your scarab, your kiss, your field, and you took them not in gold or stone, but in memory bound by rebellion. What did you take to the afterlife? Not what they gave you, not what they thought you needed. You took only what you chose, and that is more than any pharaoh ever managed. You wake before the servants. The sky outside the linen shutters is still black, not with night, but with that strange early hour between silence and expectation, when the sun hasn't yet dared show itself. And even the birds are waiting to hear who gets to sing first. You don't move. Not yet. Because once you rise, you cease being a girl. You become a womb, a legacy vessel, a walking dowry. And today is the day they check if you're ready. The house smells of warm grain and old perfume. Your sleeping mat is damp where your legs press together all night, rigid with dread. The cotton shift clings to you like a second skin, sweaty, childlike. But your body no longer looks like a child's. That's the problem. You feel it, the weight, the unspoken urgency in your father's narrowed gaze last week, the way the servant girl looked away when folding your new veil, the sudden disappearance of your best friend Nefret after her third blood. She hasn't written. You suspect she was married off, or sent to the weaver's quarter, or something worse. Today is your turn. You dress yourself slowly. You take longer than you should binding your hair. You use the dull comb on purpose, so each stroke pulls so pain keeps you real. So you don't drift into the place inside where the real you hides, crouching behind old festival songs and cracked shells you used to collect near the Watergate. Your mother appears just as the second lamp is lit. She doesn't knock. She never does anymore. She says nothing, just walks to your mat, eyes flicking once across your tunic checking for stains. There are none, because you made sure of that, because you've been hiding it. Your first blood came 2 moons ago, but you bit your lip and washed your own linens, buried them under kitchen ash, learned to walk stiff-legged until the ache in your hips passed, because you knew what it would mean, because you do not want to become the next story they write in your bones. Your mother sighs, she walks to the window, taps it twice. A maid appears, it begins. The women gather in the hot room. They light incense, blue lotus and sage. They ask you to kneel. They unwrap you without speaking. You stare at the woven reed mat, the slight tear in its corner, the ant crawling through the straw basket. They touch you, hands cold, then warm, then clinical. They press, examine, smell. One nods. Nothing yet. You keep your breath shallow, because if you breathe too deeply, you'll scream. They mark your wrist with henna, a warning to the household not fertile, not ready. You've bought yourself another month, maybe, that night. Your father calls you to his chamber. He sits on a low stool, staring at a copper plate covered in papyrus slips. He doesn't look at you. He just says, "When the goddess speaks through your body, we will listen. Until then, be still. Don't ruin your value." You nod. You're dismissed. You return to your room and cry into the edge of your scarf, not because you're sad, because you're angry, because your blood is yours. And yet everyone treats it like a harvest report. Later, you meet Nefret in the storage yard. She isn't gone after all. She's been working under the palace seamstress. She whispers, "My husband is 60. He calls me Bud, like a plant. I think I hate the smell of men." You kiss her on the mouth. It tastes like date wine and swallowed silence. You do it again. She holds you, and for the first time in weeks, you feel real again. You start keeping track of your cycles, of your lies, of the smiles that make people stop asking questions. You learn how to lean against the doorframe like you're aching from emptiness, not fullness. You learn to fake innocence. You become fluent in weaponized girlhood. One day, a cousin visits. He is 16, handsome in the dull way rich boys are, too clean, too curious, Your father introduces you. Your mother beams. The cousin smiles, wide and expectant. You keep your gaze low, but inside, you sharpen your bones. Later, he corners you near the grape arbor. I heard your blood is slow, he says. Like a compliment. That means more time to play, doesn't it? You smile. You lean in. You press your hand gently to his chest, and then you knee him in the groin. Hard. He gasps. You lean closer. Tell anyone, and I'll say you touched me first. He never speaks to you again. Your mother is furious as she hears whispers. She says you're becoming wild. She says if the blood doesn't come, the gods will take it another way. You want to tell her it's already come, that the gods have nothing to do with it. But instead you say I had a dream. The goddess said to wait. She pales. Just enough. You smile. Sweetly. You visit Nefret at night. You steal wine. You make a list together, things you'll bury with you that aren't allowed. A knife. A love poem. The scent of another girl's hair. A sandal that doesn't match. A story they can't erase. You hide the list inside a sealed jar and tuck it into the corner of the roof tiles. You feel like a thief. You feel like a queen. Weeks pass. You stage a fainting spell. You overeat dates before the next inspection so your belly swells. You speak in riddles. You burn your linens when no one's looking. You become mythical. They don't know what to do with you. You're too silent, too still, too alive. The high priest is summoned. He's old. He smells like dead cedar. He looks you over like a man inspecting a horse. Perhaps she is marked. The goddess may be taking her as a vessel. She should serve in the temple. You nod. You look grateful. You are not. You are calculating. They send you to the temple of Hathor. They expect you to pray, to serve, to become soft. You do none of these things. You wash floors. You copy scrolls. You memorize every door and every guard's shift. You learn where the priestesses go to cry. You listen when they speak of girls who ran. And then one night you run. You do not run far, only to the cliffs outside the city. There is an old shrine there, broken and covered in moss. You light a fire. You burn your shift. You carve your name into the stone, but not your given name, the name you chose. Historians will not find you. They will find a broken wall, a charred comb, a scrap of linen with no sigil. They will say another abandoned site, another temple girl lost to illness. They will not know you built a life, not in papyrus, in refusal. You live in the reeds now. You sell prayers in exchange for figs. You offer blessings to those who ask with kindness. You bleed freely, sometimes into the river, sometimes into the soil, sometimes into your own hand, cupped like a bowl. Each time you whisper mine, you've caught more screams than a warfield, but they don't call you a warrior. They call you mother of mothers, or she who holds, or if they're angry or afraid witch. You are none of those things. You are a midwife, and your hands have known the weight of gods before their names were carved in stone. Your name is Iset. You're not young, but not yet dying. You've forgotten how many births you've attended, though the ache in your knees keeps count. You've delivered princes, fishermen's twins, the unwanted child of a temple girl whose eyes stayed empty long after her belly flattened. You've held stillborns wrapped in lotus petals. You've buried infants in clay jars. You've heard mothers wail and not wail, and once laughed too hard as she bled to death. At least it's over, she'd said, face covered in tears and poppy sweat. You lit a lamp for her that still burns, even if no one else remembers her name. Tonight, you're summoned again, a late-night knock, soft, respectful, a servant boy with soot on his feet. Lady Tehani, he says. She is early, and in pain. You nod. You do not pack much, only your kit copper knife, clean linen, resin oil, sharp flint, herbs for pain, a dull amulet carved in the shape of Taweret, goddess of childbirth and protection, half hippo, half crocodile, all mercy. You always bring that one. You don't bring hope. That part comes later, if at all. The house smells like salt, not sea salt, sweat salt, panic salt. The kind of scent that clings to the ceiling and tells the truth before mouths do. The father is missing. The servants avert their eyes. The girl is 16. She's not a wife. You already know how this one will end. She's labouring on a woven mat, knees drawn up, nails torn. The water has already come. Too early. Too fast. She sees you and bites her lip. "I didn't mean to," she says. You hush her. You press a damp cloth to her chest. You say nothing about shame, because the body does not care who touched it, or when, or why. The body only remembers the consequence. The baby comes quickly, too small, too quiet. You clear its mouth, you rub its back, you speak its name, though no one gave it one. You place it on the warm cloth by the window. You sing. It does not breathe. Tahani doesn't ask. She knows. You wrap the child in the linen. You place a piece of carnelian on its chest. You press it into her arms. Hold her, you say. She won't feel it, but you will. Tahani sobs without sound. You wash her. You whisper to Tauri. You bind her belly. You stay until dawn. No one thanks you. But when you leave, the house is clean. This is not the first child to be hidden. It will not be the last. You begin to see patterns. Too many noble girls giving birth early. Too many babies not meant to be. Too many boys who look too much like priests. You do not ask. Not out loud. But you write their names on strips of cloth, and you burn them in your hearth, because someone must remember, even if the gods are deaf. One day, you're summoned to the palace. A queen is in labour. You're brought through 6 stone gates, your feet washed in rose water, your hands rubbed with myrrh. They dress you in white. They blindfold you for the last corridor. You arrive in a chamber of gold. You deliver her child. It is strong as male, whole. The queen weeps. "Is it mine?" she whispers. You do not answer, because you do not lie. But you place the child in her arms, and she clutches him like he might disappear. That night, the guards pay you extra. They say you saw nothing. You nod, and that is when you begin writing. Not publicly, privately, on scraps of bark, on linen, in margins of religious texts donated to the temple. Tiny marks, birth dates, names, silences, a new archive, for children never named and mothers never acknowledged. Historians will call you a healer, or a servant, or irrelevant. They will not know that the scroll they study on inheritance law was once your pillow, that the ink between lines contains an entire history of stolen bloodlines. They will not see the code, but you do, because you made it. One day, a young priest corners you. He says they say you remember every child you've delivered. You nod, and every mother you nod again. He swallows. He leans in. Did my mother cry when I was born? You look at his hands, the ring he wears, the way his posture bends slightly left. You recognize the birth defect. You delivered him. 30 years ago. You nod once more. She did. She said you had her eyes. He breaks. Just a little, but it is enough. The palace burns a year later. The dynasty falls. You're too old to run. You stay. You keep your archive hidden under a broken loom. When the soldiers come, they ignore the old woman in the corner. They loot the jars, not the scrolls. They burn the statues, not the mattress. They kill the scribes, not the midwife, because they think you are harmless. They're wrong, because you are the last one who remembers the shape of the true bloodline, not the one chiseled into walls, the one whispered between contractions, and screamed in the dark, and buried in unmarked graves. You remember every face, every cry, every name the priest erased. Your final breath is quiet, but your hands twitch, because somewhere another girl screams, and your soul runs to catch her, because you do not believe in endings, only in entries. It begins with a door that isn't there, or rather, it was there once. You can still see the outline in the temple wall, the faint ghost of stone that no longer opens, no longer breathes. They sealed it before your mother was born, claiming the god beyond had spoken too often, but the whispers didn't stop, and now they say the whispers are for you. You are 14, you're barefoot, you're sacred, and your thighs are burning. Not from lust, not exactly, more from the incense, the heat, the pressure of the temple robe that sticks to your spine like a second, tighter skin. They've oiled your hair with rose and myrrh, dusted your cheeks with crushed carnelian. You smell like sacrifice wrapped in sugar. Your hands shake as you adjust your collar. The priestesses tell you not to be afraid. They say Amun will speak gently. You are lucky to be chosen. The god will use your body like a cup. He will pour wisdom through you. You do not feel lucky. You feel like a thing being offered. The chamber is small, circular, silent, too many painted eyes on the walls, a single slab of stone at the center shaped like a bed, but not meant for sleeping. It is cold when you sit on it, even colder when you lie down. They leave you there with only a single oil lamp and a statue of Amun, his face erased from age, or maybe mercy. You're told not to speak, only to listen. At first, there's only silence. You count your breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. The stone shifts beneath you, not moves, shifts, like it's breathing, like something is exhaling under the slab. You sit up. The lamp flickers. You feel a pulse beneath your spine, a low throb, not yours. The air thickens. You want to scream. You don't, because screaming would make it real. The whispers begin near your ears, but not in them, just behind, like breath on your neck when no one's there. You hear no words, just vowels, long, drawn, hungry. Your body responds before your mind does. Heat in the belly, ache in the thighs, fingers twitching like they've been dipped in honey and regret. You whisper, "Who are you?" No answer. Only heat, only pressure. You lie back down. Not because you want to, because you have to. Because something pushes against your chest gently, but firmly. The statue remains still, but you feel it. Between your legs, a presence. Not touch, not flesh. Just weight. Like the space inside you is being filled with something invisible and immense. You're not sure if you're weeping or sweating. You open your mouth to pray as your voice won't come. The God is inside your throat. You swallow. You shake. You listen. And then you are mine. A voice says, soft, not loud, not male, not female, just final. You black out. You wake in your own chamber. Your robe is changed. Your thighs ache. There is no blood. Just rose petals crushed between your knees. The priestesses say, you are radiant. The God is pleased. You may now speak prophecies. You ask, what did I say? They say you sang. You remember nothing, except the voice, except the pressure. They give you a title, Oracle Bride of Amun. You're paraded, painted. People kiss your feet. They ask you for blessings. You give them what they want, because it is easier than explaining what really happened. At night, you dream of hands made of smoke. They lift your spine like a bowstring, but they press your mouth into dirt. You wake with wet thighs and a heart that won't stop pounding. You say nothing, because the God is watching, because he is never silent now. The priests bring you a boy. He is 17, virgin, chosen for purity. They say the God desires union. You say nothing, but your hands clench. The boy is kind. He weeps after. You do not. You stare at the statue and say, was that enough? The statue says nothing, but something shifts in your belly. You bleed the next moon, not the usual way. You bleed too much. They call it a cleansing. They call it divine rearrangement. They give you poppy. You dream of a moon's mouth on your navel. You wake screaming. You're 15. You're pregnant. The God's child, they say. You know better. You know whose. But the story is cleaner this way. They parade you again. You're holy now. No longer a girl. Now a container. A sacred jar full of cosmic future. You carry it carefully until it kicks, until it burns. You labor alone. You request it. You cannot bear another set of painted eyes watching. You scream into the statue's lap. You bleed. You beg. You curse the name of every priest who ever touched your forehead. And finally, with a snap like a rope breaking, you deliver. It is not human. At first, wrapped in a membrane. No cry. Only a hum. You cut the cord yourself. The midwife faints. The child opens its eyes. They are gold, like the statues. They name him Nebmat, Lord of Truth. You call him nothing, because you do not know what he is, only what he took from you. He grows too fast. By 1 moon, he speaks. By 3, he reads. By 6, he orders servants like a king. He stares at the statue often, too often. You begin to fear him, but you do not leave, because you know what's inside him, and it still wants you. One night, he enters your chamber. He is 5. He touches your wrist and says, "Why don't you pray anymore?" You slap him. He does not flinch. He smiles. You run to the sealed door, the one the temple closed generations ago. You kneel before it and scream, "Take him back." Nothing answers, just the whisper of old stone. You weep until your lungs ache. The boy dies young, 10 years, a fever, or a curse. No one agrees. They bury him in gold. They say the god returned to himself. You say nothing, but you smile. For the first time in years. Historians will argue. They'll say the oracle was metaphorical. They'll say the divine pregnancy myths were political tools. They'll say there's no proof of divine union. They will not read the cracks in the altar stone. They will not see the fingernail marks inside the statue's base. They will not feel your ribs when they study the tomb. Still bruised, still echoing, still waiting for silence. You learn early that a girl's words are dangerous. Not because they're untrue, but because someone is always listening. In the palace, the walls don't just have ears, they have appetites. Gossip seeps through the latticework like smoke, and the wrong syllable can unravel an entire bloodline. So you stop speaking, out loud. Instead, you start writing, not with ink, with pain. It begins with a pinprick, a single thorn from the acacia tree, dipped in soot, pressed gently into the soft flesh under your tongue. You do it in secret, crouched behind the temple's grain shed, heart pounding so hard it stutters. One dot, then another. A pattern only you understand. The pain is sharp, then dull, like grief after the first week. You smile. You've started your first curse. You're 12. Your mother is dead. Your father remarries. The new wife calls you little mistake when she thinks you're asleep. You memorize her voice, her scent lavender and goat sweat, her footsteps heavy, urgent, rehearsed. You count how many times she visits the steward's chambers at night. Then you carve her name into your inner lip with a fishbone. Only the consonants, the vowels you swallow. Some things must be tasted to be believed. Your tutor says curses are for peasants. He says a proper lady settles disputes with honeyed words and lowered eyes. You ask him if his limp is new. He doesn't answer, but he never corrects you again. You grow. So do your curses. They live in your cheeks now, in the tissue behind your molars, in the thin line of skin that connects your tongue to the floor of your mouth. Every insult you've ever swallowed lives there, preserved like papyrus in the desert. You become a walking archive of all the things no one lets girls say. The servants start calling you Silent Lotus. They think it's poetic. They don't see the way your mouth bleeds when you smile too hard. They don't hear the voices trapped inside your gums, whispering back to you at night. Your stepmother falls ill. The kind of illness that doesn't rot, doesn't burn, just lingers. She loses her appetite. Her teeth ache. Her tongue swells. The priests say it's punishment. You say nothing. But later, when you find her weeping in the bath, her hair brittle as straw, you feel nothing but calm. Your mouth tastes like copper. You suck your teeth. You hum a lullaby no one taught you. You begin experimenting. Different materials leave different marks. Charcoal fades too fast. Pomegranate juice stains, but blisters. Goat's milk and clay, mixed with blood, create something that etches and stays. You paint it beneath your tongue in symbols no one recognizes. Some are ancient, some are yours. You write words like leave, choke, forget, flee, obey. Each one burns. Each one becomes a part of your mouth's muscle memory. You practice saying them without sound. One day, you say forget to a palace guard. He blinks. He walks away. You laugh so hard your mouth splits open. It's worth it. You fall in love once. A girl named Meket. She works in the library. Smells like ink and figs. She laughs like the Nile rising slow. Sure, a little dangerous. You kiss her in a stairwell. She kisses back. Then she pulls away, terrified. You try to curse the fear out of her, but you can't, because the only curses you've ever made are about defense. And now, for the first time, you wish you had made one to keep something close. Meket is transferred. You never see her again. You bite your cheek until it scars. You bury her name under the soft skin behind your front teeth. Not as a curse, as a keepsake. One day, a nobleman grabs you. In the corridor, he thinks your silence is submission. He touches your waist. You spit blood into his eye. You whisper break. He falls down the stairs that night, both legs shattered. He tells the priests he slipped. You're sent flowers the next morning. You burn them. The rumors spread. They say you are cursed. You are not. You are the curse. They try to test you. A scribe brings you into the temple alone. He lights candles. He asks you to confess. You do not. He leans close. You whisper, burn. The lamp explodes. He loses an eye. They call it coincidence. You call it practice. The high priestess visits. She kneels before you. She touches your jaw. She says, I once carved a curse into my thigh. I still walk with a limp, but I walk alone. You look at her, and for the first time, someone looks back. You are chosen to lead a procession, to honor Hathor, the goddess of joy, of beauty, of rage wrapped in song. You walk barefoot. You smile. No one sees the words stitched into the lining of your throat. The words that say, I am not yours. I am not clean. I am not done. Historians will find your bones one day. They will marvel at the scarring inside your jaw. They will call it disease, self-harm, an ancient pathology. They will never guess it was language, that you wrote your way free in the only place they couldn't erase, inside the flesh, under the tongue, where no one dares look. They'll study your burial chamber, no tomb paintings, no hymns, just one phrase carved into a single limestone brick. She never spoke, but everything listened. You die old, mouth closed. But every word you ever bled still lives in someone else's spine. Every curse you crafted still rustles behind the teeth of the women who survived you. Every whisper you weren't allowed to say, it echoes. Now. Here. In the dark. You lie beneath linen now, not tightly wrapped, not entombed, just resting. A quiet shape in the dark, no longer carrying incense or obligation, no longer bracing for hands that press, or mouths that question. The torchlight has long since faded, but its memory lingers behind your eyes like the imprint of the sun on shut lids. You breathe in slowly, like tasting river water before it floods. The walls around you are soft, not stone, not papyrus, just hush, like woven reeds, like a field after the harvest, like no one is watching anymore. Outside, time collapses. The scribes misfile your story. The priests forget your name. The embalmers mix up your jars. But none of it matters now, because you remember the scent of honey on your wrists, the feel of rough straw under your knees, the silence that hummed louder than any prayer. Your blood was never sacred. Your body was never theirs, and the afterlife is yours alone. A breeze moves past, but you're not cold. The ghosts have grown quiet. The gods are asleep, and somewhere in the back of your mind, the last reed flutes fall silent, one by one, like the hush after a funeral song. You're no longer waiting, not for justice, not for forgiveness, not even for rest, only for the soft slip into darkness, where everything is finally still, and the names no one wrote down still bloom like flowers underground. Unseen, eternal. Sleep now. You are free. You're forgotten, and you are complete. Shh. Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into satin slippers and a slowly unraveling nightmare, the kind where the lace itches. The air smells like waxy perfume, and you're just 14 years old, shivering in a dress so heavy it could anchor a ship, with no idea that a hungry country is already sharpening its teeth in your name. You're not Marie Antoinette. Not yet. Right now, you're still Maria Antonia Josepha Johanna of Austria, youngest daughter of the Holy Roman Empress. Technically still a child, but about to be unwrapped like a diplomatic offering and served, with decorum, to the French. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little time machine reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your shoes are new and hate you. Your ankles ache. Your toes curl against silk linings that bite back with every jolt of the carriage. You're sitting upright in a gilded box, surrounded by chaperones and courtiers who smell like lavender and tension. Outside, France inches closer with every hoofbeat, but it might as well be the moon. The coach sways like it's drunk. It rattles over frozen mud and past barren trees. their limbs clawing the grey sky like they're trying to warn you. No birds, no children waving, just the rhythmic clop of horses and the occasional jarring squeal of wheels protesting the weight of history. Your mouth is dry. No one offers water. It wouldn't be proper. And if you asked, they'd smile with powdered lips and make a note in some ledger that you were overly familiar. You're not allowed to be thirsty, or tired, or human. You're Austria's youngest daughter, the one they saved for last. Not because you were special, because you were expendable. Your mother, Empress Maria Theresa, runs Europe like a stern governess. 11 of your siblings have already been shuffled into thrones and treaties. You're simply the next pawn on the board. She's chosen your husband for you, the heir to the French throne. A quiet, soft-faced boy named Louis Auguste. They say he collects locks and fiddles with clocks. They don't say if he'll like you. It doesn't matter. You are not here to be liked. You are here to anchor an alliance, to give birth to France's future, to smile through your own erasure. The cold creeps in through the seams of the coach. You pull your shawl tighter. It's Austrian wool. You wonder if it, too, will be taken away. The convoy halts suddenly, a ripple of motion. Voices outside. Then a breathless lady-in-waiting announces, with theatrical reverence, that you've arrived at the Ile des Échanges, the island of exchange, a small, damp patch of land wedged between Austrian and French territory, dressed up with white canvas and diplomatic self-importance. They've built a temporary pavilion here, part wedding altar, part customs checkpoint, part stage. You're the only act, no audience but the most powerful people in two empires, and they're here to watch you transform. The ritual begins. You're led inside the pavilion. Inside. It's freezing. The walls are linen, the wind slips through, and the floor is damp boards that creak under velvet shoes. There is no fire. That would be too warm, too Austrian. This moment is meant to be cold. The Austrian delegation, your people, begin to undress you. Not figuratively, not symbolically. Literally. Your necklace is removed. Your earrings. Your rings. Your gloves. The embroidery on your sleeves is unfastened. Your gown, layered and stiff with whalebone, is unhooked in silence. A French lady hands you a new corset, slightly tighter. You're not allowed to keep your shoes, not even your underthings. They say this is protocol, a full stripping of foreign influence, but it feels like a robbery disguised as politeness. You're standing half naked in front of strangers, and the word diplomatic does nothing to stop the chill crawling up your spine. Your attendants cry softly as they replace each item with French equivalents. French silks, French slippers, a perfume that smells like crushed violets and boiling sugar. Your language is the next thing to go. From this moment on, German is forbidden. You will speak only French. You smile and say, merci. It sounds wrong in your mouth. Your teeth clack slightly from nerves. Someone hands you a mirror. You almost don't recognize the girl in it. The French ambassador steps forward and announces, with great ceremony, your new name and title, Marie Antoinette, Dauphine of France. There's polite applause. You do not clap. They escort you to a new carriage, smaller, French-made, gilded with excessive confidence. The wheels start turning before you're fully seated. The trees look different now, more brittle, the land flatter, the sky paler, like it's been watered down. You wonder if the sun shines differently in France, or if it's just your imagination. In the distance, somewhere beyond those horizon lines, is Versailles, a palace so large it devours forests and fountains alike, where mirrors are more common than privacy, and gossip echoes louder than prayers. But before you reach it, there are banquets, balls, appearances. You're paraded through towns like a holy relic in a glass case. People stare, some throw flowers, others throw words, sharp ones. You're too young, too Austrian, too expensive. Your smiles begin to ache. You try writing a letter to your mother, but your handwriting is critiqued by your tutor, and your content by your governess. Too sentimental, she sniffs. Try to sound more grateful. You start again. You use shorter sentences. That night, alone in your new bed, you curl beneath a duvet that smells like lavender and starch. You miss your pug. They wouldn't let you bring him, said he was uncouth. Sent him back with your chambermaid. He was the only thing that felt like home. The bed is too large, the ceiling too high. You feel like a coin dropped in a marble bowl. Small, cold, spendable. Sleep doesn't come. But the dawn does early and loud. A dozen servants enter before sunrise. They open the curtains with sharp flourishes. They speak softly but constantly. You're observed while you sleep, woken with ceremony, and dressed with choreography. Every gesture is a performance. Even yawning requires permission. By midday, you are rehearsing your curtsy for the king. Not your husband, the current king. Louis XV, he will judge your smile, your posture, your fertility. Not with malice. Just calculation. You are not a person to them. You're France's future womb. When you finally meet the Dauphin, your future husband, he avoids eye contact. He mumbles a welcome. He bows too quickly. His hand is clammy. He smells like sweat and wine and something vaguely metallic, like tools. You try to make a joke about the weather. He chuckles once, then excuses himself to go hunting. You're left smiling at a velvet chair. The rest of the day is a blur of etiquette, embroidery, and aching cheeks. At dinner, you're seated beside men who've written essays about your figure without having met you. They speak about you in the third person while buttering their bread. At night, you cry quietly. You practice your French in whispers. You recite Je suis Marie, Je suis la Dauphine, Je suis la France maintenant. I am Marie. I am the Dauphine. I am France now. But you don't feel like France. You feel like a girl who stepped into a mirror and disappeared. Zoom out. A girl in a linen pavilion, a name discarded, a language forbidden, a pug left behind. The storm hasn't started yet, but you can smell the iron in the wind. And when you finally sleep, it is the kind of sleep that ends with drums, because tomorrow is your wedding, and tomorrow the real nightmare begins. You wake to bells, not delicate little chimes, but Versailles bells bold, resonant, unapologetic. They clang from towers and chapels and courtyards as if France itself has rolled over and decided it's time you became a wife. You're barely conscious, and already you're being prepared. Not bathed, prepared. 10 women enter your room before your feet hit the floor. You're washed, powdered, corseted, pulled, padded, laced, and pinched into a gown so wide it could sweep the candles off every mantel in the chateau. It rustles like dry leaves in a mausoleum and smells faintly of vinegar and starch. Your stomach is already in knots, but you're offered broth, not for hunger, for nerves. No one says it aloud, but today's goal isn't love, it isn't beauty, it isn't celebration, it's consummation. You're 14, your new husband is 15, and a small nation is invested in whether the two of you can figure out what to do with your bodies once the ceremony ends. Outside, the crowds have already gathered. Some are singing, some are selling bread. Some are just standing in silence, staring at the gilded carriages with faces like stone. Their king is dying. Their wallets are empty. And here you are, a symbol in silk, powdered within an inch of your skull. You're ushered into a golden chapel that could house a small army. The air inside is thick with incense and unspoken judgment. Every pew is filled with lace, jewels, powdered wigs, rouge, and whispered gambling on whether you'll seal the deal before dawn. The wedding is long, Latin chants echo, rings are exchanged, vows are said. Someone drops a rosary, no one laughs. Louis stands beside you like a wax figure. His hand trembles when it touches yours. His breath smells faintly of mead and mint and something nervous. He doesn't look at you, not exactly. His eyes stay trained on the altar, or the floor. You do your part. You smile like you were taught gently with the mouth, not the eyes. When the priest pronounces you husband and wife, there's no kiss, no applause, just a slow, rising hum of approval. The sound of court politics shifting slightly in your favour. Afterward comes the meal, a truly monstrous banquet. 16 courses, a dozen wines, plates stacked with swan, venison, sugared oranges, stewed cherries, marzipan shaped like Greek gods. You touch nothing. You're too nauseous to eat. But you must pretend. So you smile again, cut one piece of quail, dab your lips, swallow only air. You catch Louis staring at a plate of sausages like they might save his life. Then dessert, then dancing, then more speeches, toasts to your womb, to his virility, to the alliances of 2 ancient houses now braided together like ribbons around a guillotine. And then comes the part everyone is truly waiting for, the bedding ceremony. A royal tradition, obscene in its politeness, devastating in its pressure. You're both led to your new bedroom by a procession of nobles, bishops, and high-ranking busybodies with the emotional subtlety of a firing squad. The room is candlelit, sweltering, and full of eyes. The marriage bed is large, curtained in gold, stuffed with down, and feels more like a stage than a place to sleep. An older nobleman makes a joke something about fruitful soil. A woman tucks your hem, another adjusts Louis's collar. You're both stripped to your underclothes. You lie down first. He follows. Then, mercifully. The curtains are closed, but not before a round of applause. Applause! They clap like they've just watched the first act of a comedy, and then they leave. You're alone now. Louis clears his throat. You hear him fidgeting. There's a small metallic clink. He's removed his shoes. A longer pause. He sits beside you. The mattress sags slightly. Neither of you says anything for a long time. The candles flicker. Your skin feels too tight. You think of Vienna, the cold halls, your dog, the way your mother looked at you like a chess piece. Louis finally speaks. He says, "Do you want more covers?" You nod. He pulls the blanket up to your chin, then rolls onto his back and begins to snore. Just like that. The future King of France falls asleep beside you like a bored peasant in a hayloft. You stare at the ceiling. The next morning, the maids pretend not to notice the unwrinkled sheets, but the whispers begin anyway. And oh, do they whisper. Courtiers who've never so much as spoken to you now discuss your anatomy like they're royal gynecologists. Anonymous pamphlets appear. The libelles, as they're called, flood Paris cruel, pornographic little leaflets mocking your cold womb, your incompetent husband, your foreign softness. Some speculate that Louis prefers hunting to women. Others say you're too frigid, that you're cursed, that you're secretly barren, that Austria sent a defective princess. You're 15 now, still a child, but your failure to produce a child is already being debated in salons and stables alike. You try to learn his interests, locks, keys, knots, metalwork. You listen politely as he explains gears and weight mechanisms. You smile. You ask questions. You try not to wince when he stutters, but nothing changes. The bed remains cold, and the rumours heat up, zoom out. A girl in a gold bed, a boy who snores, a nation holding its breath for a child that won't come. Versailles, by candlelight, begins to laugh softly, venomously, and you, Marie, are starting to realise this palace is not a home, it's a glass box, and everyone is tapping at the sides, waiting for you to break. Versailles smells like expensive rot. Not decay in the graveyard sense, not yet, but in the way perfume tries to fight a war it can never win. Underneath the rosewater and jasmine is the unmistakable stench of people. Too many people. Too many layers. Too many secrets wrapped in velvet and sweat. You walk down the hall of mirrors, and your slippers catch on the marble. The floors are polished, but nothing ever feels clean. The chandeliers drip with wax. The walls echo with whispers. The windows are never quite closed, not because the air is fresh, but because someone somewhere is always trying to escape. Your room is vast, gilded, freezing. The fire doesn't reach the corners. You sleep in a bed so tall it requires a stool. The mattress sags where generations have sweated through brocade. The canopy above you flutters when the wind sneaks in, carrying not the smell of gardens, but of chamber pots and boiled meat. Yes, the pots. Let's talk about those. Versailles, for all its opulence, has no plumbing. That's right. The Palace of the Sun, King Louis XIV's grand masterpiece, is essentially a Baroque porta-potty. There are official places to go, but most courtiers don't bother. They relieve themselves in stairwells, in fireplaces, in corners behind tapestries. The servants try their best to keep up, hauling out basins of waste through gilded halls, but the sheer volume of bodily functions overwhelms even the most dedicated chambermaid. Every few days, someone will faint during court. It's not the politics, it's the ammonia. You learn to breathe through your mouth not because it's ladylike, but because you don't want to know what died under the floorboards. But no one talks about it. That's Versailles etiquette. Ignore the stink. Maintain the illusion. You can faint, you can vomit, but you must not wrinkle your nose. Every morning, your day begins with the leave of the royal rising. You do not simply wake up. You are woken. The door creaks open before dawn. A procession enters. Courtiers line up nobles, duchesses, even bishops, all hoping for the honour of helping you put on a sleeve. They fight over who gets to hand you your garter. It's not about affection. It's about proximity to power. Sometimes they argue while you're half naked. You smile through it. Try not to shiver. Let them bicker over who gets to tie your corset. It takes 19 people to get you dressed, and that's just for breakfast. Louis has a similar ritual. Men fight over who gets to pass him his breeches. One time, he's almost late because the correct duke hadn't arrived to hand him his slippers. There is a designated person for everything from folding your handkerchief to announcing your bowel movements. No moment is private, no corner unobserved. Even your meals are public. You eat behind a low railing. People come to watch. Peasants, visitors, the minor nobility. They line up and gawk while you chew. If you drop your fork, someone writes about it. The food itself is an event, elaborate, endless, and mostly inedible. Bread baked until black, pâté that wiggles, creams congealed into sculptures, meat drowned in sauces so thick they taste like perfume. The fashion is for display, not digestion. The kitchens, miles away in the palace underbelly, deliver everything cold. You get used to lukewarm veal and melting jellies shaped like roses. One day, someone serves you a swan, actual swan dyed blue with crushed flowers. You try not to cry. The wine is always flowing, not because you're celebrating, but because no one trusts the water. And then there are the fashions. Versailles doesn't just follow trends, it invents punishments and calls them couture. Every week, you're expected to appear in a new gown, stitched from fabric so stiff you can't sit, with sleeves so wide you can't hold anything. The fans are heavy, the gloves too tight, the heels absurd. Your hair rises higher with each passing month, until it resembles a theatrical set piece. At one point, your hairdresser builds you a pouf in the shape of a French frigate, a full ship, complete with sails, flags, and cannon smoke made from cotton. Is meant to honour a naval victory. It gives you a neck spasm. Your hairline begins to recede. You're 17. No one mentions it. They just powder you more. But the real danger isn't the wigs, it's the makeup. To achieve that famous porcelain glow, you're painted with ceruza white lead paste that smooths the skin and poisons the blood. It cracks if you smile too wide. It itches. It burns. But it's what royalty does. You learn not to touch your face. Red dots of rouge are applied high on your cheeks to mimic health. Ironically, it's to hide how sick everyone actually is. You sit at court beside women whose teeth fall out one by one, whose skin peels, whose gums bleed from lead exposure, and you nod politely as they discuss opera. The fashion of Versailles is death in installments. But as long as you sparkle, no one cares. One afternoon, a rat runs across the Queen's salon. No one screams. That would be vulgar. Instead, someone murmurs, "How charmingly rustic." You write home to your mother. You tell her about the ceremonies, the gowns, the courtiers. You leave out the smell, the lead, the rats. Her reply is short. Do your duty. Bear children. Strengthen the alliance. You are a womb with a crown. Meanwhile, the rumours grow louder. The pamphlets grow filthier. You're still not pregnant. Louis still won't touch you. The public begins to suspect scandal. They call you l'Autrichienne, the little Austrian cow. It rhymes. They like that. Your enemies circulate illustrations of you grotesque, lurid caricatures. Some depict you in orgies. Others show you as a pig in a crown. The artistic skill is questionable. The venom is not. You try to ignore it. But every time you enter a room, the conversations halt. You don't know who's read what, who believes what. You only know that the walls feel closer now. Zoom out. A palace where filth hides under satin, a girl painted in poison, a marriage rotting from silence. And outside those gilded gates, France is starving, the bread is thinning, the debts are swelling, and you, poor girl, are being measured for a villain costume you haven't even tried on yet. The first thing you hear each day is the key turning in the lock, not your lock. Of course, queens don't get keys. Queens are unlocked by someone else, on someone else's schedule. Because the day must begin, and you are the main event, or at least the main spectacle. At Versailles, your schedule is not yours. It is the court's, and the court is addicted to ritual. Everything must be performed. Everything. Waking up is a procession. Getting dressed is theatre. Blinking might be a minor ceremony if someone important happens to notice. They call it lever the rising. But it doesn't feel like rising. It feels like being hauled into existence, piece by people you barely know. Your chamber door opens, and in comes the first wave of duchess, 2 maids of honour, a valet, and the premier femme de chambre who decides what mood you'll be allowed to have today. If she smiles, the sun might as well shine. If she scowls, it's going to be a long morning beneath layers of taffeta and diplomacy. You lie there, eyes open, trying not to startle. One of them announces that it is time. Another pulls back your covers as if revealing a statue. You sit up. You're offered holy water to dab on your forehead, because even waking up must be blessed. Then the others file in. Nobles of varying rank, ladies in waiting, visitors of court, curious cousins, all gathering to watch you sit up. They comment on your posture, on your breath, on your complexion. Someone whispers that your lip is dry. Another offers rose balm. You're not asked, you are attended. You're helped into a robe, not because you're weak, but because touching the queen is an honour people have killed for. A lady with papery hands buttons the sleeves while another one nods solemnly, as if she's inspecting a religious relic. Then the dressing begins. Your corset is tightened by the bonne femme. The lace is cut into your ribs. You cannot wince. Wincing would imply discomfort, and discomfort is not fashionable. Today's dress has been chosen for you. It matches the season, the event, the mood of the ministers, and maybe your husband's passing interest. It requires 2 women to hold it up while a third secures the hooks. Your undergarments have golden thread. The stockings were stitched in layen by women who whispered blessings into every seam. The shoes are velvet and lined with weasel fur. No one asked if you liked weasel. Your hair is styled next. You sit for an hour while your hairdresser builds a powdered cathedral on your scalp. He hums while he works. You close your eyes. Try to breathe through your mouth. The powder smells like wet chalk and lilies. A birdcage wig was suggested for next week, complete with real birds. You're still considering it. Then comes the makeup. Lead white for the face, crushed carmine for the lips and cheeks, a drop of vinegar in your eyes to make them shine. You smile. Your face cracks. You smile again. And now it's breakfast. Breakfast is not breakfast. It's a stage show with food as props. You sit behind a gold railing. Plates are placed before you. The servant whispers what each item is: stewed prunes, chilled cream, poached eggs, a bitter chocolate that's supposed to help with fertility. You are allowed to eat. You are encouraged to eat. But you are also being watched. 30 people stand in the room, some pressed against the walls, others hovering just outside the door. They are not there to dine. They are there to witness you dine, to interpret, to whisper. If you eat too fast, you're crude. Too slowly, you're sad. Skip a dish, and rumours fly. The queen hates fish. The queen suspects poisoning. The queen is ill. Sometimes, you put a fork to your lips and feel like it's a blade. You finish your meal. You thank the appropriate people. You nod to the ones who earned the right to hand you napkins. And then you rise. But only when they do, because even standing up is choreographed. Next comes the day's schedule, already set by someone else. First the promenade. You must be seen in the gardens. The fountains are spraying. The statues are gleaming. Peacocks roam like decorative spies. You walk, flanked by women you don't trust, waving to men you've never met. A boy bows too low. His wig falls off. Everyone pretends not to notice. Then, a visit to the king. You're ushered into a room with too many mirrors. Louis XV is old, perfumed, and nearly translucent. He greets you like a grandfather and asks, once again, if there are any heirs on the way. You laugh politely. So does he. But the silence that follows feels like a threat. You return to your apartments, change dresses. This one is lilac. It's for meeting ambassadors. You must sit still for an hour while a diplomat from Sweden explains grain exports. You nod. You smile. You wonder if your eyeliner is smudged. Later, your music tutor arrives.